Even though these chocolate bars are identical, the one on the left costs 120% more because we bought it at the airport. This printer costs $160. An $8 monthly subscription might seem like a better deal, but after the 2-year commitment, you'll have spent more than the original price. Disney vacations, video games, even daily drinks. So many things are skyrocketing in price. We dug deep to understand 9 ways that everyday life is more expensive than ever.
You probably know you're paying a premium, but have you ever realized just how much more? This burger from Chili's is marked up 46% from its street price.
There are so many airports across the U.S. where the management isn't answerable to the broader public.
But the problem isn't just that passengers are a captive audience. It's a lack of competition. Like, look at this food court. All 6 of these businesses are operated by the same multi-billion-dollar company. So how did airport prices get so high? And why are some airports raising them even more? To understand how we got 5 Starbucks in a single terminal, we need to go back to the early 20th century, when airports looked more like train stations.
People complained about airports being overcrowded, dirty, dingy kind of places. The glamour came once you got on the airplane.
See how neatly everything is arranged on the tray?
But for the air travel industry to grow, airports needed to improve. They also needed to make money from passengers.
They were making money any way they could. Observation decks, oil wells, swimming pools, tennis courts. Some of them began to charge for parking, which became a big moneymaker eventually. There might be a newsstand there. Airports tried things like pay toilets, and every nickel counts, I guess.
By the mid-20th century, airports opened restaurants to attract not only passengers, but also those wanting a night out.
These were very nice restaurants. In my hometown, you would go for an anniversary, people would go there for prom.
This postcard described Janet's hometown airport as the Midwest's most distinctive dining and cocktail lounge. And in the 1960s, some new terminals were architectural marvels.
These types of amenities were designed to bring people to the airport, maybe inspire them to fly, but also to generate revenue. Of course, airports are always looking for ways to make more money.
This was the golden age of flying.
Here in the cabin, it's like a gentle June morning.
But compared to today, not that many people traveled by plane. Because tickets were expensive, it was mostly the wealthy and businessmen that flew. And those who did fly weren't spending much time in airports anyways. But that changed in 1978. Congress deregulated the industry, allowing airlines to decide their own rates and routes. Soon after, ticket prices fell.
Deregulation led to literally a frenzy of fare wars. Well, you get what you pay for. You went from getting gourmet meals to getting the bag of pretzels, peanuts, and a soda pop. No more free cigarettes. For those who had grown up in aviation during the golden age, their world was gone. Because as they lowered fares, the service on the airplanes also, as they would put it, deteriorated.
The number of people flying in the U.S. each year nearly doubled over the next decade, thanks to cheaper tickets and bigger planes.
I could afford to fly. And if you know about graduate students, they can't afford much of anything.
In the 1980s, an increase in connecting flights meant passengers waited longer in the terminal.
This big rush in there overwhelmed airports.
They could shop at a newsstand or eat at a few quick-service restaurants. But it wasn't a great experience. Even back then, passengers complained about 50 to 100% markups.
The airports and the airlines began thinking, well, we need to do something to keep passengers happy while they're sitting here waiting for their connection.
The solution? Malls.
The Pittsburgh airport opens in the early 1990s, and it catches on immediately.
With more than 100 shops and restaurants, Pittsburgh's airport was the first in the U.S. to transform the terminal into a mall.
It not only makes passengers a lot happier, but it's a great revenue source because every one of those shops are going to pay a rental fee to the airport.
In fact, the airport's revenue soared 75% within 6 years, according to one report. And the airport achieved that without price hikes. It used a model called street pricing. Basically, what you buy inside the airport should cost the same as outside. The county commissioner even said, "We're the first airport not to gouge people."
The air mall concept was a great one to make a lot more money.
Other airports poured tens of millions of dollars into renovations, hoping to emulate Pittsburgh's success. And in response to passenger complaints, other airports also followed the street pricing model. But if airports had this policy back in the 90s and early 2000s, why does this chocolate bar cost more than double what you'd pay outside? Nowadays, most U.S. airports use something they call Street Pricing Plus. That is, a product's street price plus an additional 10 to 15%. The authority that controls the airport sets this price cap.
15%, a fair and reasonable adjustment for our concessionaires.
Businesses aren't supposed to go over this additional percentage. And in most cases, the airport audits prices a few times a year. Under this model, prices should only be a little bit higher. But how an airport determines street price can be a bit confusing. That $14 chocolate bar is from LaGuardia in New York City, which is run by the
Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
It requires businesses to set prices based on the average of comparable items sold outside the airport, plus an additional 15%. This is what the Port Authority said District Market was citing for the chocolate bar. But when we checked in person, we found a different story. One location didn't sell this bar at all. The other two sold it for less than District Market said. In response, the Port Authority didn't say it would be adjusting any prices. Because enforcement and repercussions are lax, examples abound of companies charging more than 10 to 15% above street price. Let's say Janet flew out of MSP and wanted to buy her favorite airport snack.
Oh, M&Ms. You know, they melt in your mouth, not in your hand.
In August 2025, the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport told Business Insider it uses street pricing plus 10%. But at this Hudson News store, Janet would pay 69% more than she would at a Walgreens outside the airport. A Chick-fil-A chicken biscuit meal costs over 16% more. And one of the worst offenders we found was a yogurt marked up 84%. A spokesperson from the Metropolitan Airports Commission told Business Insider that locations are audited 2 times annually or on an as-needed basis. But it did not comment on the price disparities. Even though most airports have a pricing policy, a lack of enforcement means passengers often get a bad deal. But some in the industry say that charging street prices isn't sustainable because it's more expensive to run a business inside an airport. All employees, products, and equipment need to go through security, which increases construction and labor costs. The exact numbers vary, but development reportedly costs 30 to 40% more than it does outside. On top of that, some cities set a higher minimum wage for airport workers.
And we're also asking you to generally run your business from 4 a.m. to midnight. If you're a pasta place, we're saying, okay, what's for breakfast?
And businesses pay a percentage of their sales to the airport. That's part of their rent.
The businesses here at the airport pay anywhere between 6 and 20%, but the vast majority are paying between 10 and 16%.
But there's one thing that usually doesn't get brought up by these companies. Competition. Or the lack of it. In the US, the vast majority of airport food and retail is managed by 6 large corporations. You might not have heard their names before, but these companies have their footprints everywhere. Worldwide, they operate more than 13,000 locations. Remember this food court? It's in the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. It might seem like you have 6 options, but inside the airport, these restaurants are all operated by one company, HMS Host. And it goes even further. Volta, the company that owns HMS Host, also owns the duty-free and Hudson News stores at this airport. But even that's not the full picture. A store like this Prairie Market seems like a different business, but it's operated by Hudson under the Avolta umbrella. You can see it advertising Avolta's rewards program. But it's not just this airport. In parts of LaGuardia in New York City, you can't escape Avolta's signs. Another big player, OTG, operates 350 locations in North America, including this Chibo Express gourmet market that sells yogurt for 84% above street price. After we reached out, OTG said it lowered the yogurt's price down to about what you'd pay outside the airport. Many airport businesses have multiple owners, but the large concessionaire is usually the majority stakeholder. And because a few big companies have a hand in most of the airports in the country, there's hardly any competition within a terminal. Mergers and acquisitions are consolidating the industry even more. And these companies often advocate for airports to raise their street pricing cap. The Phoenix, Arizona airport abandoned street pricing entirely in 2019 after 2 large concessions companies, HMS Host and SSP, asked for the cap to be increased. That means there's theoretically no limit to what businesses charge. But if everyone charges high prices, passengers don't have anywhere else to go. This became more of a problem after 9/11. New security measures greatly increased what's called dwell time, basically the time spent waiting in the terminal. And studies have shown that for airports, more waiting means more food and retail revenue.
About 63% of passengers on the airplane side will make some form of purchase. Some of it is based on boredom because the average time spent at an airport is roughly 2 hours. It is only the very experienced travel that will often go through security with an empty bottle and then take it to a water fountain and fill it up. But that is a tiny percentage of passengers.
The whole goal of moving them through quickly is 1, to reduce the stress time that they have, but 2, provide them with the opportunity to spend more time post-security, hopefully supporting the concessions program.
For more than 2 decades, airports have capitalized on dwell time, and the concessionaires have made heaps of money. It's usually impossible to get to your gate without walking past food or retail.
If you get someone's saliva glands working, they tend to buy more.
That's essential to the business model. U.S. airports earn almost half their revenue from non-aeronautical sources, like passengers parking their cars or buying food.
Diversifying non-aeronautical revenue and getting more of it is really one of our highest priorities to kind of protect ourselves from these unknowns.
In 2024, U.S. airports made over twice as much food and beverage revenue as they did in 2010. So are there any airports in the U.S. where you don't pay a premium? One of the few that doesn't use street pricing plus is in Portland, Oregon.
It's clean street pricing. Whatever they charge downtown in their stores or on their street locations is what they have to charge here at the airport. There are no fees, no additional charges.
At PDX, the percentage the airport takes is relative to a business's sales volume.
If you're working with them to make them successful and have a financial structure that allows them to flourish, then I don't think they're so against the street pricing cap.
And it's been a success.
The passenger spend per what we call per enplane passenger at PDX is about $15.03. That's about 20% higher than the average through the nation, which is around $12.50.
PDX has used street pricing for decades, but Dan doesn't expect the industry to follow suit.
I think that airports that don't have the model today, it's hard to turn the dial back.
In fact, some airports are moving in the other direction. Since 2010, LAX used street pricing plus 18%. But it removed that cap on most items in 2025 in response to complaints over rising airport minimum wage. And the Airport Restaurant and Retail Association wants flexible pricing, or in other words, no limit. It says that overall passenger satisfaction is more important than price. But the 6 big airport food and retail operators are very focused on increasing profitability. Part of Avolta's long-term strategy is to continuously drive spend per passenger and optimize the profitability of our commercial spaces. And so far, it's been quite successful. At a time when everything feels more expensive, some passengers might be reaching a breaking point. J.D. Power's 2024 survey of North American airports found that passengers spent less in the terminal than they did a year earlier. It also found that food and beverage prices have been the lowest scoring attribute on its survey for years. In May 2025, members of Congress wrote a letter asking the Federal Trade Commission to investigate concession prices at airports and stadiums. They said that with few options, travelers face extreme markups for drinks and food before their flights.
I experience the same frustration at some airports when I have a beer on the way home from a business trip and pay $16 for it.
Having worked on airport retail now for almost 40 years, it could definitely be better, no question. I believe fervently that amenability and profitability are linked, that the friendlier the space is, the more money you tend to make.
And buying your favorite snack before you reach the airport might save you more than you realize. This printer costs $160, but HP would probably prefer it if you paid $8 a month to rent it instead. It might not sound like a lot until you realize the subscription locks you into a 2-year commitment. After 2 years, you'll have spent $192, 20% more than it would have cost to buy the printer outright. The subscription includes ink, but HP artificially limits how many pages you can print each month. Exceed that, and it charges you more. But it gets worse. After those 2 years, you still won't own this. HP's terms of service explicitly state you do not own HP device and subscription cartridges provided, even if you complete the entire subscription term. Over the past 20 years, subscriptions have taken over our economy.
You can't buy a car today without, seems like a half dozen subscriptions.
I'm powerless. I just turn up one day and suddenly I've got to pay more money.
But the cost isn't the only problem. If everything is a subscription, we won't actually own anything. Consumers are fed up, and some are fighting for the right to own what they buy.
It's a matter of liberty. Am I free to own things, or should I rent indefinitely?
But challenging subscriptions means taking on some of the largest companies in the world.
A whole bunch of industries that are not trying to make their products or services better, they're trying to find new ways to earn money from consumers every month.
So how did we get to the point where practically everything is a subscription? And why is owning nothing making everything so expensive? Subscriptions feel modern, but they've been around for centuries. Americans used pay-as-you-go for newspapers, magazines, milk, and even fruit. But technology enabled companies to turn anything into a subscription.
Consumers knew they were subscribing to a newspaper because it landed on their doorstep every morning. The fact that consumers are paying for services that they're not actually using is a trend that technology has enabled.
It started with cable. For decades, most TV channels were free, and there weren't many options.
Don't miss this wonderful chance to get a Captain Video picture ring.
But that changed in the 1970s. Satellites enabled nationwide broadcasting, and the government allowed more channels on the air. The first company to leverage this lucrative technology was HBO. It realized that consumers would pay monthly to access its curated channel. Cable was an early example of paying for a subscription without getting a physical product in return. And it was wildly successful.
There's going to be a huge demand for material very shortly, in a couple of years, for cable.
HBO signed up over 14 million subscribers in a decade. And by the mid-1980s, dozens of channels had followed its lead.
I want my MTV!
The percentage of households with a cable subscription jumped from 7.5% in 1970 to around 67% by 1999. But that was just the beginning. Starting in the 1990s, internet providers like AOL connected millions of Americans using subscriptions.
You've got mail.
And consumers started shopping online.
Companies pretty quickly understood that this new structure of the relationship with consumers gave them opportunities not for like a one-time payment, but for an ongoing monthly revenue stream.
Companies took something that consumers used to buy once and instead asked them to pay continuously for access, like software from Salesforce, music from Rhapsody, and online games from Blizzard.
World of Warcraft. Try it for free at warcraft.com.
This shift turned products into services.
There's so many people and so many internet users, and for us, this is a beginning.
This sacrifice, this trade-off of control for convenience, right?
Improved online payment systems reduced friction. And as e-commerce grew, subscriptions popped up for every aspect of daily life. But the rise of smartphones is what solidified this transformation in the late 2000s.
For the first time on a mobile device, you can have the internet in your pocket.
Using apps had become a daily routine, and it didn't take long for some developers to start charging small monthly fees for them.
The subscription economy has grown from sort of a small set of goods and services to almost everything you can think about.
Even sleeping has a subscription now. The company 8 Sleep sells a smart mattress cover that costs over $3,000. Most of its functionality is locked behind a $17 monthly fee. That subscription is mandatory for at least your first year.
I probably have 10 to 20 monthly subscriptions. Am I allowed to use the word enshittification here?
Netflix, Hulu, Dropbox,
Vogue,
HBO Max, Google Storage,
Apple TV, New Yorker,
Amazon Prime, YouTube TV, my local YMCA.
I do actually pay for Peacock.
NBA League Pass. You do not get access to local games. If I want to watch a Knicks game, I have to subscribe to a totally different service. I'm convinced that there's just like a few hiding that I don't know about.
Oh, Spotify. Oh my gosh.
It's really impossible to have one service that gives you everything you actually want.
Technology proliferated subscriptions, but the reason they're everywhere is because they make companies a lot of money. Subscriptions give companies recurring revenue, something investors love. And subscriptions are sticky. They're good at retaining users because most are automatic.
People are 4 times more likely to cancel when they have to make an active choice. That allows them to make more money than they would with more transparent pricing schemes.
Neil and his colleagues found that companies earn as much as 200% more revenue thanks to inattentive subscribers.
Industry has figured out that this is a profitable business model, and they've been moving towards it to maximize their profits.
One company doing exactly that is Adobe. It's been selling software since the 1980s, typically releasing a new version every year or two. But in 2012, the company launched its Creative Cloud subscription. Instead of allowing consumers to buy the software once and upgrading when they want, Adobe now sells all of its apps bundled together for a monthly fee. So if you want permanent access, you need to keep paying. even after you've spent way more than the software used to cost. Adobe faced heavy criticism for its decision, but there's no doubt it transformed the company. 3 years after launching Creative Cloud, revenue was higher than ever. In 2024, it soared to $21.5 billion, over 5 times higher than before Adobe launched the subscription service.
Adobe really was a pioneer in realizing that they can squeeze a lot more revenue out of consumers by signing them up for subscriptions rather than selling software and letting consumers keep it and use it however they want.
Another company that's made a fortune off subscriptions is Apple. Since 2015, it has launched at least 8 subscriptions. Now, when you buy an Apple Watch, the company hopes you'll also subscribe to Fitness Plus and Apple Music. Of course, you'll also want to protect it with Apple Care. Annually, these cost about the same as the Apple Watch itself.
Apple's been remarkably successful at finding new ways to squeeze money out of its customers.
Apple's services revenue, which includes subscriptions, rose from around $20 billion in 2015 to over $96 billion in 2024.
Subscriptions, from a company's perspective, is the way to go. The real question for me is it the way to go for consumers?
At first, many subscriptions may seem like a good deal for the convenience they offer. But the lifetime costs are more opaque. Take a look at this subscription from computer hardware company NZXT. It lets you rent a gaming PC with the option to cancel at any time. The middle tier costs $129 per month, which might appear like a steal. But let's do some math. It'll only take 15 months to spend more than the value of the computer itself. It's common for a PC to last more than 5 years. In that time span, you'll have paid NZXT over $7,700 through its subscription. For that amount, you can buy the PC 4 times over. Other companies entice users with free trials or sign-up promos, hoping they'll stick around even after the subscription outlives its value.
It's becoming almost anti-customer, where it feels personally as a customer that I'm preyed upon.
And the problem isn't just that the cost adds up over time. Many companies purposefully make it difficult to cancel.
Dark patterns are when a company designs a user interface, like a website, to deliberately trick or deceive customers.
Once companies have consumers' payment information, charging people is frictionless, raising prices is easy, and canceling subscriptions can be really hard.
Sam Levine was director of the FTC's Bureau of Consumer Protection under Joe Biden.
What I saw during my time of government is some of the biggest companies in the world were some of the biggest abusers of subscriptions.
The FTC sued Amazon in 2023 and Adobe the year after, arguing the companies tricked users into signing up for subscriptions and made it deliberately difficult to cancel. Let's take a look at Adobe's Creative Cloud. It defaults to a plan that looks like it's month to month, but it's actually a year-long commitment. The FTC said Adobe didn't clearly state that customers needed to pay a fee to unsubscribe early.
These fees were so big and so important to Adobe's bottom line that one executive of Adobe described it as being like heroin in how addicted the company was to these fees.
Adobe declined Business Insider's request for comment. In 2024, it told The Verge that the quote was taken out of context and said cancellation fees made up only a small part of Adobe's revenue.
Folks who rely on Adobe services and Adobe products and end up getting ripped off by a company that's charging them huge fees and making it really difficult to cancel.
Adobe appears to be making its subscription terms clearer. Screenshots from 2017 show that users had to click into the fine print to learn about the cancellation fee. The FTC's case showed that in 2023, Adobe's sign-up page mentioned a fee, but didn't immediately disclose the amount. As of December 2025, it states upfront that users must pay half your remaining annual commitment, which could cost hundreds of dollars. The FTC's case is still in litigation, but others have already been successful.
It should be as easy to unsubscribe than it is to subscribe, but it doesn't feel like that's the mechanism that most businesses are going for.
The FTC was working on a rule called Click to Cancel that aimed to make canceling as easy as signing up.
The rule was hugely popular, but earlier this year, the Eighth Circuit, one of the federal courts, struck down the rule on procedural grounds, saying that industry should have had more chances to weigh in on the rule. And there's no indication that the Trump administration is planning to continue work on the rule.
Removing subscriptions from your life isn't easy. As companies connect more products to the internet, the distinction between owning and paying for access gets blurrier. Printers, security cameras, exercise equipment, and even cars all limit features behind subscriptions.
These are all things that are software dependent, and so when you don't have control over the software code, that means you don't have control over the physical product itself. Sometimes that means features get added, features get taken away without the consumer's consent. It even gets to whether the device continues to operate at all.
Aaron co-wrote a book in 2016 called The End of Ownership. Since then, he's only become more pessimistic.
I think things are worse than we imagined they would be. Our daily behavior is really built around the idea that the things that we use every day are within our exclusive control. And I think when we move away from that, what's the model for what a non-ownership economy looks like? There's some very smart people out there who, describe this as a kind of return to feudalism, a world in which we don't own anything, we don't control anything, and the benefits of these resources are sort of, hoarded by the handful of technology and media companies that control our access to them.
Mergers further concentrated this control. And with less competition, prices could rise.
They're in a much better position to sort of eliminate consumer surplus and push consumers to paying the maximum price that they can bear. That might look good for a handful of companies, but I think ultimately it's pretty harmful for society as a whole.
The erosion of ownership has already happened to media. In 2024, 84% of US recorded music revenue came from streaming. Physical sales accounted for 11%. It's even lower for movies and TV shows. Spending on physical media made up less than 2% of revenue. Consumers don't own the majority of media they consume, which means they give up the right to resell it, loan it to a friend, or pass their collection down through generations. When Netflix blocked password sharing, it made this imbalance clear.
When you move to digital, those secondary markets are essentially eliminated. And that's something that a lot of publishers, studios, video game developers, that they've been hoping for a very long time.
But a growing number of consumers don't want ownership to die. Take a look at this graph. Since 2005, the number of vinyl records shipped grew by over 1,200%.
It's an old idea to physically hold something and look at it, but at the end of the day, it just feels good. It's wonderful to be a part of this reemergence of a physical life that I think people are really missing in an age of complete digitization and dehumanization.
This neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York sees itself as fighting against that dehumanization. Shop owners refer to it as Analog Alley, Because within a few blocks, you'll find board games, books, records, and VHS tapes.
After one night of complaining one too many times, Jess yelled at me to start the store, so we started the store.
Pretty much that's what happened, yeah.
Night Owl Video's merchandise proudly declares death to streamers.
I think the pitch from these streamers when they started was affordability and accessibility of great movies. And now it's the complete opposite because they've started making their own movies and they want to push those onto people, removing the titles that clearly people actually want to watch.
While prices started out low, every major streamer has increased the cost of its subscriptions.
You're being fed from an algorithm and fooled into thinking that this algorithm is super tailored for your particular taste.
You're probably just going to end up scrolling for an hour and not finding anything you want to watch anyway.
Jess and Aaron hope Night Owl's human curation reminds patrons they don't have to let an algorithm pick their next movie.
For your consideration, Spirited Away, this is like pretty rare.
Night Owl offers an estimated 8,000 to 10,000 movies on DVD, Blu-ray, and VHS.
When I tried to order copies through the distributor too, and I couldn't get them. They're back-ordered. Young Frankenstein is back-ordered. It's really cool to see a younger generation who didn't necessarily grow up buying DVDs like we did, embracing that idea, really enjoying it and enjoying like searching through the stacks to find great stuff.
DVDs and Blu-rays haven't experienced the same comeback vinyl has. But for Night Owl, selling dead media has been a success. A physical collection comes with tangible benefits. Streaming catalogs change all the time as licenses swap hands or companies like Disney remove titles to write them off as financial losses. Blu-rays can also look and sound better than streaming because they're less compressed, and the quality doesn't change depending on your internet speed. But more importantly, curating a collection is the way Jess and Aaron show their love for their favorite media.
Streaming has devalued art in almost every way.
I think that it's really important to preserve the films that you love and to really experience them.
The expressions on a lot of people's faces when they come in, it's like, wow, this still exists. It's really a nice thing.
Fighting the subscription trend became a personal mission for James Kuda, too.
I deeply hate subscriptions, unless they make sense.
His company, Procreate, has become wildly successful by asking its users to buy its apps once.
Yes, we would technically make more money if we were going down a subscription route. We're all in business to generate revenue, but I think the other part of that story is we're here to generate revenue and provide value to the customer. And I think that part is just not being evaluated. We're sort of prioritizing revenue generation at the expense of the customer. I think that creates quite a lot of brand damage because you're not eliciting a feeling of joy or fun when you're interacting with that brand. You're creating a sense of aggravation and a feeling of entrapment, which customers don't forget.
Gamers are feeling the aggravation too. Microtransactions, battle passes, and online-only functionality are all too familiar in modern gaming.
The customer should have more, basically, freedom to own their media. Because the more of the control lies with the company that either distributes or creates the ecosystem, the more opportunities for just unfair practices. They are becoming the standard and no one knows that they are unfair anymore because they haven't seen anything else.
The platform GOG is committed to preserving retro games. But even with new titles, it offers users an offline installer without digital restrictions. That means you can install a game even if the publisher no longer sells or supports it.
The aim was to solve that for consumers and to build a digital distribution platform that would keep the good things about physical distribution, but move them into the more convenient digital era. You have the files, but they're yours. You can keep them. It's a matter of liberty. It's a matter of like whether I can actually own something and whether a company takes something away from me. Am I free to own things? Is that okay for me to own, or should I rent indefinitely?
We're not delusional. I don't think streamers are necessarily going anywhere, but I do think that people are going to become more aware of how they're spending their money on entertainment.
Consumers should make whatever choices work for them. I'm not here to tell everybody that they're wrong for having a Spotify subscription and everybody just needs to buy vinyl records. But one of the things that troubles me is that for people who want to buy tangible copies, that's becoming increasingly difficult to do.
There are products that many of us no longer want, and we're still subscribed to. And that's generating revenue for those companies. And it means that a new company, which is offering a product that we do want, they may not have an opportunity because our money is tied up somewhere else.
But the FTC is going to keep playing whack-a-mole unless it actually issues a rule that applies to every company in the economy, saying you can't trap people in subscriptions and you can't lie to people when they're signing up.
What worries me is I think the status quo is more desirable to the companies that control these markets, and I don't think they're likely to yield that control without a real fight.
The U.S. imports over 2,000 tons of this bright green powder from Japan a year. This specific powder is the highest quality and most expensive version of matcha, known as ceremonial grade. As the matcha frenzy reaches new heights in the U.S., more Western consumers are opting for this type of matcha over less expensive versions, or matcha grown outside Japan. But with Japanese farmers struggling to keep up with demand, matcha shortages around the world, and prices soaring to new records, picky matcha drinkers might actually be making the problem worse.
We do have some crazy matcha connoisseurs that come in.
But these labels may not be as definitive as we think.
Anyone can label anything as ceremonial grade and use it as a marketing term.
So are people in the US drinking matcha all wrong? And is that the only reason why matcha is more expensive than ever? Matcha drinkers in the US typically think about the tea in two quality-based categories: culinary grade, the lower quality version, and ceremonial grade, the higher quality one. But in Japan, the traditional classifications were completely different, based on when the tea was served during a Japanese tea ceremony known as chanoyu. Koicha, or thick tea, was served at the beginning, and usucha, or thin tea, would come at the end. For koicha,
like a thick soup or like melted ice cream would be a good way to describe the consistency. It's really viscous.
Rebecca Corbett has been studying and practicing chanoyu for over 20 years.
Because of that viscosity, and there's so much tea in there, you want it to be the highest quality blend that you can get.
For usucha, practitioners whisked the matcha powder with more water, creating a lighter, frothier drink.
We can think of the thin tea portion of a tea gathering as kind of the most informal and relaxed part at the end of the tea gathering.
For centuries, ceremonies like these were the primary way matcha was consumed in Japan.
Most people in Japan did not consume matcha very often. Its main consumption was among people in the tea practitioner community.
It wasn't until the 20th century that people in Japan began consuming matcha more casually. It also became a popular flavoring in baked goods and desserts. But in the US, it was still nearly impossible to find. In the early 2000s, Japan exported just 1% of its tea. Matcha was always more expensive than other teas. Around this time, a pack of green tea bags in the US cost around $3 to $4, while a small tin of matcha could cost up to 10 times more. And the bold taste of matcha in its pure form was another barrier for Western drinkers.
I've read a lot of newspaper articles and travel diaries. They're using phrases like green gruel, bitter, unpalatable. They use pea soup as a common description in a not flattering way.
But 2006 marked a turning point for matcha in the US. That's when Starbucks brought matcha to the masses through its green tea latte. Unlike its traditional preparation, this drink was sweetened, served with milk, and either served hot or iced.
People knew Starbucks. I mean, there's a built-in audience there.
That's Rona Tison, the North America tea ambassador for the Japanese brand Ito-En.
The fact that they introduced matcha in a beverage that was more familiar to a lot of, sweetened beverages. I would have to say that was probably the beginning that it really kind of went mainstream and widespread.
In 2007, the term ceremonial-grade matcha was coined in the West. According to Canadian brand Do Matcha, it was their founder who came up with the category. It was created to differentiate it from culinary-grade matcha, which is intended for cooking or baking, with a stronger, slightly bitter flavor.
Culinary tends to be much more older plant and not of the really high-grade tea leaf.
The higher quality ceremonial grade matcha is typically made from young tea leaves that come exclusively from the first harvest of the picking season. It's rich in the chemical L-theanine, which gives the tea a slight natural sweetness, making it better for drinking. Ceremonial grade matcha is typically priced higher than culinary grade matcha, costing anywhere from $20 to over $50 per ounce, while culinary grade matcha is typically under $20 per ounce. Matcha's popularity in the US continued to grow in the 2010s, with Google searches for matcha beginning to rise more steadily around 2012. Ito-En, Rona Tison's tea company, rolled out its Matcha Love line in 2015. Even Business Insider covered the craze, releasing several videos about the bright green tea powder.
I'm getting hungry. The power of social media is pretty phenomenal, and it really, the outreach globally is amazing.
Today, the US is the biggest importer of Japanese matcha, accounting for nearly 80% of the country's powdered green tea exports in 2024. Google searches for matcha reached an all-time high in 2025. There are even cafes dedicated solely to the green tea powder. You'll find it in almost everything on the menu at the New York City cafe Aoko Matcha. Matcha lattes, matcha soft serve, and even gelato. Aoko Matcha has only been open since August 2025. Its owner, Isabella Pang, says business is booming as prices for matcha continue to climb.
Customers are really happy with it. It turned out better than I thought, actually.
She uses only ceremonial grade matcha in all of her matcha desserts, which she says she sources directly from Japan.
Some people come for the matcha latte specifically because they want to taste all different matcha lattes in the city. We do have so crazy matcha connoisseurs that come in and it's like, this is super good, or this is a little bit too sweet.
Aoko's menu mainly consists of desserts, with its matcha mochi parfait being one of the most popular. It starts with a base of matcha pudding and syrup.
So we do make our pudding in-house, but it's very light. It doesn't taste sweet at all.
Then it's layered with matcha soft serve, rice crisps, more soft serve, mochi balls, and red bean paste.
Our gelatos are our specialty. Right now we do have levels 1 through 5, 1 being the most sweet and 5 is being the most bitter. So personally I like level 3 because it's right in the middle, but people that love matcha go straight to level 5.
It's not just cafes like Aoko Matcha fueling this recent matcha craze. Communities are forming in pockets of the internet, such as Matcha Talk, where matcha enthusiasts share recipes and tips.
As I've always said, matcha is very versatile, but goodness, it's been sort of applied in so many different food products and beverages.
But producing enough for matcha's growing fan base is becoming increasingly challenging.
60% ぐらいは海外の方じゃないかなと思ってます。
We first met Jintaro Yamamoto back in 2022 on his over 180-year-old farm in Kyoto. The region is responsible for 25% of Japan's production of tencha, the tea leaf from which matcha is made. The harvest begins in the spring, when workers gather the young leaves used for ceremonial grade matcha.
本当にもう触れば折れるほど柔らかいので力は積むのにはいらない。
But it's more than just Western categories putting a strain on Japanese supply. This is Jintaro's elaborate shading system, designed to protect the leaves, a step that's perhaps become more important than ever. In 2024, intense heat waves damaged tea bushes in Kyoto.
っていうのが本当にこの2年間不安定な天候が続いていたんで、収穫できる量っていうのが非常に少なくなってしまったっていうことはあったんですけど、肥料をやる時期をちょっと変えたりとか、多い、影を作る、タイミングをずらしたりとかで、あとはもちろん収穫するタイミングっていうのも考えて、なるべく、より良い茶ができるように、努力しました。
But even with these adjustments, he says his farm's yields took a hit. After the leaves are picked, Jintaro starts by steaming the tencha leaves. This locks in their flavor and preserves their rich green color. He cools them with a leaf spreader and places them in a nearly century-old furnace to dry.
この風合いを守りながら、なるべく自分の理想とするところのいいものができるようにしたいなと思って。
After drying, the leaves' stems are removed and then they are prepared for grinding. Jintaro grinds his tencha leaves using a handmade granite stone mill. This traditional method creates a fine powder that preserves the nutrients of the tencha. It takes Jintaro an hour to grind just 40 grams of matcha.
いただきます。
Another issue plaguing Japan's tencha production is the shrinking number of tea farmers available to grow it. With most tea farmers in their 60s and 70s, and a few young growers like Jintaro joining the field, there aren't enough new farmers to take over existing tea fields or expand production. These issues have created a shortage that's driving the price of matcha upward. The average price of tencha reached 8,235 yen, or $56 per kilogram in April 2025, the highest it's ever been.
お茶の量っていうのがかなり減ってしまいました。なので、それを補填するためにも、あとは、いいお茶を作り続けるために、必要だと感じたので、値段を上げさせていただきました。そうですね、うちでは、30% ぐらい。
These producer price hikes trickle down to distributors like Ito-En, the company Rona works for. In September, it increased its prices on some of its premium grade matcha products, as well as double the price of its ceremonial grade matcha.
We've unfortunately had to, it's becoming difficult to get matcha these days.
On top of everything, new U.S. tariffs threaten to make Japanese matcha even pricier for American consumers. Isabella is also thinking about price increases for Aoko matcha in New York City.
During August and September, we stocked up a lot because we knew we were going to have a big inventory, but it definitely has impacted our goods. A lot of our pricing, it is more expensive, especially with the tariffs happening as well. Therefore, our gelatos and our lattes and our parfaits will unfortunately have to increase a little bit throughout time.
Even with prices reaching record highs, global consumers continue to demand ceremonial grade.
That's what gives it that smooth, umami, rich taste, and as well as that bright color that you see in our gelatos and lattes.
But matcha purists like Rebecca see things differently.
If you're using it in a beverage that has a lot of other flavors added, and other sweeteners in particular, then it's okay for that matcha to be more bitter and to be a lower grade and cheaper matcha. You don't need to be buying the highest quality. To me, the analogies I would give would be buying a really expensive bottle of French red wine and adding fruit and sugar to it to make sangria. So I think especially in this period where we're seeing a matcha shortage and that the producers are struggling to keep up with demand, I think it's really important to just be mindful of that and not wasteful of a product.
She also worries that people may be paying premium prices for ceremonial matcha that is not actually of higher quality.
Anyone can label anything as ceremonial grade and use it as a marketing term. So it basically means that it's like the Wild West, it's totally unregulated.
As global demand for matcha puts strain on Japan's supply, new players are also entering the market. China has surged ahead over the past 2 decades and is now the world's top producer.
I know that they are actually inviting many of the Japanese matcha makers to really learn how to make matcha properly and learn the expertise in all this.
Chinese matcha sells for less. But does a label or country of origin really determine quality? We decided to do a blind taste test with some colleagues.
I have tried matcha before. The cafes I go to usually have some sort of fun flavor going on, like a strawberry shortcake matcha, or even recently, like I had a banana bread one.
I am a bit of a matcha hater. Tried to like it, but even with sugar, it tastes a little swampy to me, unfortunately.
I have tried matcha before. It was when the matcha craze first came to like America, so a lot of years ago. I had it and I went, I'm not sure if this is for me.
So I'd probably say this one looks the most appetizing to me.
Looks yummy, but I bet it's not. But it looks like a yummy green juice that I would enjoy.
I don't have to drink all of this, right? Okay, it's actually not as bad as I was expecting. Maybe it tastes more a little bit like grass, but like it's very light.
So that one definitely has like that bitter, earthy taste to it. And then there's like a slight like floral flavor to it, which is really nice.
Oh, actually, that wasn't bad at all. I mean, it tastes like tea. That tastes good. It just tastes like a very herbal tea. I guess I like it, huh? Yeah, I keep sipping it. So I guess I like it. I'm coming back for it.
That one's much stronger. Okay, yeah, that one tastes like pond scum, which I've never had, but I imagine that's what it tastes like.
This one's a little bit more earthy, almost like just plant-like. And I kind of miss the floral flavor that I was getting from this one over here.
See, that tastes like grass, which is what I was expecting. It's extremely bitter.
It didn't immediately repulse me, so that's good. Yeah, it tastes spinachy, it tastes drinkable.
Afterwards, I'm sitting with like a sour, like a weird sour taste on my tongue. It kind of feels like it left a film of an unflattering taste. Yeah, this one's not doing much at all.
It's definitely the lightest tasting. It tastes like almost nothing. This is definitely the most subtle flavor of the three, and yet I dislike it the most for some reason.
Definitely the lowest. This is in the middle, and this is the highest.
Okay, my ranking is 3, 2, 1.
I would say this would definitely be my first choice for the matcha latte. I think with the bitterness of it, the sweetness of like the latte would come through nice.
The results are in, and all 3 participants chose the Chinese ceremonial matcha as their favorite. 2 ranked Japanese ceremonial as second, with 1 choosing it as the worst, and 2 out of 3 ranked Japanese culinary grade in last place.
Like these two, they have way more flavor with them. They're just a more pleasurable drinking experience. You can tell that they were made to be drank.
This is definitely like, if you're a fan of matcha, this is what I would think of when I think of matcha, and it tastes the most matcha-y.
While preferences may vary, Japan still sets the standard for ceremonial matcha.
Hopefully, maybe after a year, and hopefully matcha powder will be lowered a little bit, so it's basically more affordable for everyone.
Isabella's customers also say they're willing to spend a little extra to get their matcha fix.
Yeah, I would definitely still keep coming back because I just feel like you just can't really like top the quality here. Like I just love like the richness, the earthiness that come through when I eat like the level 3 matcha.
I think even today it is considered a bit of a luxury product. I think people would really don't mind spending the extra money to have special matcha.
In Japan, officials are working to increase matcha production by encouraging tea farmers to shift their focus from other types of teas to grow matcha in order to meet the demand. The country's Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries is providing subsidies to help tea farmers transition to growing tencha. And Jintaro says he's seeing more and more young people taking up tea farming.
私の周りにも私より若い、後継ぎ、いわゆる、茶農家を今後やっていくっていう若者もいますし。
But even with these ongoing efforts, a single season of climate stress can have long-term effects on the market. Once a tencha plantation is damaged, it can take up to 5 years to restore it to full production and meet soaring demand. And Jintaro believes climate events like these are far from over.
I would like people to kind of respect that and understand that and be mindful in their consumption.
The time and effort it takes and the attention to creating that for this beautiful bowl of matcha green tea is really something that needs to be respected and honored.
This Mickey ice cream bar would have cost $2.75 at Disney World in 2009. With inflation, that bar would cost $4.22 today, but the price has more than doubled to $6.50. And it's not just the price of ice cream. Basic Mickey ears are up 67%, and the Mickey pretzel is up 118%. It's also gotten more expensive to get inside the parks. From 2015 to 2025, Disney World's top-tier annual pass nearly doubled from $829 to $1,629. That's a 44% increase after inflation.
Every year I think to myself, well, what's my breaking point? When will I say, oh, this is too much for an annual pass?
Disney attributes these price hikes to inflation, rising labor costs, and the billions it invests to offer more experiences. But changes in how Disney sets park prices and its volatile entertainment division could also be to blame.
Now I feel like every time I blink, something new is getting more expensive in the parks.
So what's making a visit to Disney theme parks so expensive? And is there a limit to what fans will pay to experience the happiest place on Earth? Before Disney, America's earliest amusement parks weren't exactly designed with children in mind. Many were loud, dirty, and geared towards adults, featuring thrill rides and spectacles like human cannonballs.
The state of the amusement park industry was pretty sad because these parks had been around for a long, long time. A lot of them were in disrepair.
Coney Island, fire strikes again, destroying half of famous Luna Park.
Walt Disney saw this untapped market as an opportunity. On July 17, 1955, his vision became a reality, a sunny theme park in Anaheim, California.
Walt Disney's creation of Disneyland was like a refreshing change for the attractions industry because it was a new kind of amusement park that was much cleaner, much safer, and newer.
Disneyland wasn't just built for families, it was priced for them too. On opening day, the admission cost was 50 cents for children and $1 for adults. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $6 and $12. Rides were separate, costing somewhere between 10 and 35 cents, or about $1.20 to $4.20 today. And when ABC aired a live Dateline Disneyland special for Disneyland's grand opening,
People and eyes around the world are focused on these 160 acres here in Anaheim, California.
it became a national event. 90 million American households tuned in.
By the time they did the televised version from the park on opening day, everybody in the country wanted to go to Disneyland. And that was a tremendous marketing strategy.
A strategy that worked. In its first 10 weeks of operation, 1 million people visited Disneyland. By 1960, some 5 million people were visiting California's Disneyland Park every year. Within its first 5 years of operation, Disneyland helped drive Walt Disney Productions' gross income from $27 million to roughly $70 million. Walt Disney was poised to grow the empire.
He knew there were a lot of people around the United States who were never going to make it to the West Coast to be able to see this beautiful theme park that he had created. And so he got it in his head that he would like to do something similar on the East Coast of the United States.
Walt Disney World opened on October 1st, 1971, near Orlando, Florida. Tickets cost $3.50, or about $28 in 2026. The opening was also marked by another star-studded TV special on NBC.
One of the things that Walt Disney said was, Disneyland will never be finished. It will continue to evolve and grow and develop. And that is still the case.
But expansion came at a price. Take Epcot, for example.
Ladies and gentlemen, Epcot Center, the opening celebration.
When the new park opened at Disney World in 1982, it reportedly cost the Disney company between $800 million and $1.2 billion to build. That same year, the company's ticketing system changed to a flat rate for entry and rides. This chart tracks the price of a one-day, one-park ticket at Walt Disney World from Epcot's opening in 1982. When it opened, a one-day ticket to Disney World cost $15, equivalent to $50 in today's money. Throughout the rest of the 1980s and 90s, that price climbed steadily as Disney World expanded with new lands, like MGM Studios and Animal Kingdom. After 2000, no new Disney World parks opened, but there were new attractions, and park prices rose even faster. But 2 years in the 2010s would change how the parks were priced for good. In 2016, under the leadership of CEO Bob Iger, Disney introduced seasonal ticket pricing. This model created tiered ticket prices based on seasonal demand, with days categorized as value, regular, or peak. As a result, one-day ticket prices climbed above $100. And in its first quarter earnings the following year, Disney said higher average ticket prices helped push parks and resorts revenues up 6%. 2 years later, Disney World switched to a date-based pricing model, where ticket prices vary by date.
So everybody wants to come during summer vacation and Christmas when their kids are out of school. And the trouble is that if you've spent billions of dollars, really, to build these attraction facilities, they're open 365 days a year. It's just not efficient to have them filled to the brim for 4, 5, 6 weeks out of the year, and then, not so much the rest of the time.
That's Robert Niles, the founder and editor of the trade publication Theme Park Insider. Business Insider talked to him in 2018 at the height of Disney's pricing changes.
So they really want to use all of their pricing and promotions to try and equalize the crowds throughout the year.
This approach is an example of dynamic pricing, where prices change based on demand, timing, competition, or customer behavior. something most people are already familiar with from airline fares or rideshare apps, which charge more during rush hour or when the weather's bad. Disney is not the only theme park company to use this approach. In 2016, Universal Studios Hollywood, Disney's biggest competitor, introduced demand-based tiered pricing, raising single-day tickets to $115. Disneyland's lowest priced ticket for its slower season is $104, the same price it's been since 2019. In 2024, Disneyland Paris went a step further, adopting an airline-style model where prices can fluctuate until the ticket is purchased. And it's not just tickets. Prices inside the parks have climbed too. We visited Disneyland ourselves to see just how much prices for food and merchandise have increased. We started by making a list of items sold in the past that are still sold today and how much they used to cost. Then we went to the park to check out the new prices for everything on our list. The price of every item we checked has increased faster than inflation over the past 17 years. Now, even die-hard fans are having to make hard choices about investing in the happiest place on Earth.
How long have you been a fan of Disney, and how long have you been going to Disney parks?
The womb, potentially. I was a Disney child, to a Disney teenager, to a Disney adult. I've never really lost that love of magic. Now that I have adult money, I can start buying and collecting things I really like. And I love Disney art. I purchased this piece, which is Notre Dame. Hunchback of Notre Dame is my favorite Disney film of all time, and it's not appreciated nearly enough. This is something from my mom. It's a set of limited edition stamps. I have a huge Disney pin collection. So I have a pretty wide-ranging collection of ears. So these are my favorite pair. They're modeled after Thanos' gauntlet. I have these are Scarlet Witch ones. This denim hat with the ears built in. These probably are my actual favorite. Like it's all like very like candy inspired, Ariel inspired. Look like the old school character hats from the 90s, like character headbands. But this is just a small amount of my collection.
Even superfans like Sarah are struggling to contend with the high prices at the parks.
To me, Disney World has always been one of the few companies and one of the few places that truly, truly cared about its fan base. My relationship with Disney has changed partly because Disney has gotten very expensive over the years.
In a 2025 Wall Street Journal survey, 74% of people said experiences like cruises, amusement parks, and trips to Disney resorts had become financially out of reach.
It's expensive to operate Disney. And so I do understand some of the price increases, but I do think they are starting to price out your average middle class family into like that once in a lifetime trip.
Disney is offering a summer promotion starting in May 2026. A $50 one-day park hopper pass for kids ages 3 to 9. Over the past decade, Disney has also layered new premium experiences on top of its core offerings. Take Fast Pass, for example.
Check this out. You roll up to the Fast Pass kiosk, throw your ticket in, and boom, boom.
Until 2021, this service allowed park visitors to skip long lines for free. Today, its successor, the Lightning Lane Premier Pass, is a tiered and pricey add-on, costing up to $449 depending on the park and time of year. There are other services Disney once offered for free that no longer exist, like Magical Express, a complimentary shuttle that transported travelers between Orlando International Airport and resort hotels. After Disney discontinued the shuttle in 2022, it gave guests the option to choose between services like Mears Connect, about $32 round trip for adults, or its more premium minivan service, which can cost roughly $400 round trip for adults. There are also luxury lodging options. For example, when Walt Disney World's Bora Bora bungalows opened in 2015, one night at the bungalows cost upward of $2,100, or $2,876 adjusted for inflation. Now, a one-night stay at these deluxe bungalows can cost guests a minimum of $3,500, or over $6,800 depending on the season.
Disney understands the demographic changes that are happening in the United States at this point. They understand what's happening with income and economic inequality. They know that the money is in the upper level, the top 10%, the top 1%. They've created a wide variety of new products to try and, frankly, extract more money out of the people who have money to spare. Now, the downside with that is if you're one of those remaining middle-class people in America, you could get squeezed here.
I do firmly believe there are still ways to do Disney in a affordable way, but it is becoming harder.
And that's tough, and I feel that too, and I understand it. But at the same time, if Disney's going to grow, it's got to go where the money is.
And the parks are perhaps more important for Disney's overall business than ever. Disney is made up of 3 main segments, and entertainment led the way for decades.
TV is sort of a big fuel of Disney's other businesses.
Then came the cord cutters.
Well, online streaming is rapidly killing cable, Meg.
Does this portend the death of TV?
In 2019, when Disney Plus first launched, Netflix already had roughly 140 million subscribers.
Disney committed an enormous amount of money to catch up with Netflix. It committed tens of billions of dollars, at one point spending more than double what Netflix was spending. As time went on, the cost of building the streaming service began to weigh on Disney. At one point, it was running losses of $11 billion on its streaming service.
Disney CEO Bob Iger would later admit he thought the company invested too heavily in streaming. But at the same time, Disney parks rebounded quickly from pandemic shutdowns. Since 2022, Experiences, the division of Disney that controls theme parks and cruises, has become the company's biggest moneymaker, making up about 70% of operating income. So Iger made a choice: invest in what's working. In September 2023, Disney said it planned to invest $60 billion in the parks division over the next decade. And in 2025 alone, it increased spending from $5 billion to a whopping $8 billion. In 2024, at a conference for Disney's official fan club, Disney announced 4 new cruise ships and 14 new attractions. As the company invests more money in new rides, cruise ships, resorts, and themed lands, the parks are what it's relying on to fund its future. But will shiny new attractions be enough to keep Disney fans returning? Some families are even seeking out help to budget their trips. There's a whole industry built around planning a Disney vacation. Search online and you'll find countless groups, some even directly affiliated with Disney, who navigate this increasingly complex world of trip packages, vacation rentals, line-skipping passes, and more.
From a planning perspective for families, you then have to think about how are we getting there, where are we going to stay, how long do we want to stay, how much can we spend, all of those things become factors.
And Disney is still raising prices. In October 2025, it raised the price of the Lightning Lane Premier Pass.
If prices keep rising, we're probably going to have to cut back on how often we go. But I also think that, yes, Disney fans will find a way, and sadly that is just to go into debt to go on these trips, which is the larger problem.
A lot of times people will complain when the prices rise, but they do still go. And I'm an example of someone who's still going even though the prices will rise. This year, I didn't even blink an eye. I just gave my credit card and I renewed the pass, yeah. So someday I might get to that point where I'm like, really? I don't know, but I haven't reached that point. I don't think I'll reach that point for a couple of years, yeah.
For decades, fans have gotten very emotional about seeing their favorite artists. But today, it's harder than ever to see live music. In 2024, Taylor Swift fans paid $204 on average for tickets to her Eras tour. The average resale price for the tour was $3,800.
The most that we've paid for tickets are $8,000.
Wow.
That's more than $2,800 US per ticket. 60 years ago, when the Beatles played the first major stadium concert in history, the most expensive ticket sold for $5.65. That's about $58 today. So, who's to blame? A lot of people point the finger at Live Nation Entertainment, the company that owns Ticketmaster, manages artists, promotes tours, and owns and operates a lot of venues. Live Nation blames the resale market for the industry's problems.
These runaway resale markets that are run by and for broker interests.
Resale companies like StubHub throw the blame right back at Live Nation.
Any company that's being investigated by the Department of Justice and 40 attorneys general from blue and red states alike, if I were them, I would be trying to deflect as well.
Some musicians call out both resellers and Live Nation Entertainment for driving up ticket prices. But Live Nation points out that it's the artists, not them, setting the price.
It's sort of like a Jenga tower where you start to pull out one block and the whole tower starts to shake and stakeholders start getting mad at you.
We spoke to musicians, a music journalist, lawyers, government officials, Live Nation, StubHub, and customers. And everyone says it's someone else's fault. All while the fans pay more and more. It isn't easy to untangle why concert tickets have become so expensive. We investigated every angle to find the real reasons it costs so much to see your favorite artists on stage. Concert ticket prices have soared about 4 times faster than the rate of inflation for nearly 30 years. But rewind to the 1960s, concerts were practically pocket change.
I mean, one of the most iconic events was the Beatles at Shea Stadium. That cost $5.
We found Rolling Stones tickets for $4.75 in 1965, and Bruce Springsteen tickets for $17.50 in 1985. To be fair, concerts today are much more elaborate than those early stadium tours. As for the artists, touring just wasn't seen as a main source of income.
Artists, for the most part, viewed live performance as marketing. They were making most of their money from recordings. So they'd go out on a tour to help support that particular album.
This all changed with the internet. The rise of peer-to-peer file-sharing platforms like Napster allowed users to download recorded music for free.
Consumers suddenly realized that they don't need to go to their local Tower Records or Strawberries. As a direct result, revenues that are generated by artists drop rather precipitously.
From 1999 to 2009, sales of recorded music in the US were cut in half. Meanwhile, revenue from concert ticket sales in North America tripled over the same decade. While legally downloading music and streaming are often credited as saving the music industry, the massive loss in record sales revenue fundamentally reshaped the landscape. David Bowie saw it coming as early as 2002. You'd better be prepared for doing a lot of touring, because that's really the only unique situation that's going to be left. By 2010, top artists were making the majority of their income from touring. So how much do artists actually make from ticket sales? Deals can vary between artists and touring teams, but in a typical arrangement, artists receive an advanced payment or a percentage of total ticket sales. Say the total ticket price is $140, which was around the average ticket price in 2024. Roughly $102 of that is the ticket's face value. The remaining $38 goes towards taxes and ticketing fees. Before anyone gets paid, around 30% of the face value, or about $30, covers the production costs of the venue and the promoter. That leaves roughly $72 to split between the artist and the promoter, such as Live Nation. In many cases, the artist takes home about 70 to 85% of what's left, let's say $60 in this case, while the promoter keeps the rest, or $12 in this scenario. But once the artist pays for their touring expenses, crew, and management, their real profit per ticket can drop to $30 or less. And that's before adding ticketing fees, which can tack on another 25 to 30%. Most of those fees go to the venue, and a smaller share goes to the ticketer, around 5 to 10% of the total price, or about $6 in this case. Ticket prices weren't always divvied up this way. To understand why most players blame Live Nation Entertainment for steep prices, we have to go back to when it was two separate companies, Ticketmaster and Live Nation. Consumers didn't always pay sky-high ticket fees. In the 70s, fans paid smaller ones, since venues and promoters also covered the cost. That all changed in 1982, when Fred Rosen stepped in as Ticketmaster's CEO. He offered to pay venues if they used Ticketmaster instead of its competitors like Ticketron.
He goes to the venues and he says to them, what if instead of that, you made money? What if we raised service fees from 50 cents to $1.50, and then instead of it being a cost center, ticketing would be a profit center? And all of a sudden, this revolutionized just the very idea, the concept of what service fees could be.
Venue after venue signed contracts, making Ticketmaster their exclusive ticketing platform. By 1995, Ticketmaster owned about 80% of the ticketing market and had acquired its competitors, including Ticketron. Not everyone was on board with Ticketmaster's growing dominance. In 1994, Pearl Jam filed an antitrust complaint with the Department of Justice, alleging that Ticketmaster had an illegal monopoly on ticketing. The following year, the DOJ closed the investigation without action. Around the time Ticketmaster gained dominance, Live Nation was just getting started under the name SFX Entertainment, founded by Robert Sillerman.
Robert Sillerman has the idea that he's going to purchase these local promoters, make them part of one big national company, and then it would be much easier, from his perspective, to route artists across the US and also make money on the sponsorship side.
The acquisitions continued to grow from there. In 2000, Sillerman sold SFX to radio station owner Clear Channel Communications, which strengthened its foothold in not only live events and concert promotion, but also venue operations. Following a series of antitrust investigations by the DOJ, Clear Channel announced it would spin off Live Nation solely as a music promotion business. By 2008, Live Nation was the largest concert promoter in the world, controlling about 90% of major amphitheaters in the United States. Then in 2009, Live Nation and Ticketmaster announced their plans to officially merge. The possibility of a merger sparked widespread backlash. Senator Chuck Schumer criticized the deal, saying it would create unrivaled power over concertgoers and the prices they pay. On Wall Street, stock prices for both companies dipped. And in a letter to his fans, Bruce Springsteen suggested that the merger would return us to a near monopoly situation in music ticketing. In 2010, the Department of Justice approved the merger, which created Live Nation Entertainment. After the merger, Live Nation Entertainment just kept growing. Fast forward to 2025, and the company had expanded into artist management, music festivals, sponsorships, and the resale market. 15 years since the merger, the cost of concert tickets in the United States has continued to rise. Average ticket prices have climbed by as much as 120% since 2010, and particularly surged post-pandemic. It isn't just the face value price of tickets that's frustrating fans. It's also the numerous fees. A 2018 report from the Government Accountability Office found that fees averaged 27% of the ticket's price before resale. We saw this frustration firsthand while speaking with fans outside J-Hope's concert.
The fees are too much. Me and all my homies hate f***ing Ticketmaster. Oh, and one more thing, what the f*** are $150 fees? I'm sorry. Fees are ridiculous. Fees are jail time. In conclusion, jail time.
We also saw for ourselves how fees change in real time. We filmed our colleague AC's attempts to buy tickets to Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter tour in early 2025.
There has to be somewhere with 2 tickets left. Please, no. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get 2 tickets that are in the same section that are $3.89 a piece. And then I'm just gonna see on the day of if people will move. Let us sit next to each other. Order. Let's see if that worked. Oh wait, I only got 1 ticket. I thought I got 2. I thought I got 2. I only got 1 ticket. What am I doing? What am I thinking? Oh, this is really bad. This is bad all around. Okay, to conclude, this is a mess. I got a really bad placement in line. I was overwhelmed. I thought I was getting 2 different tickets. I only got 1 ticket for $3.89. Yeah. The service fee was $70 plus a processing fee of $5, so I paid $4.64 for 1 ticket. Well, I don't know what to do. I guess that's it.
No artist is immune to rising frustration from fans. In 2022, Live Nation Entertainment faced backlash from one of the fiercest fan bases in the world, Swifties. When tickets went on sale for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour in November that year, Ticketmaster crashed under the weight of about 14 million people trying to score tickets. And fans were upset.
And it put me back at the beginning. What am I gonna do?
Even Taylor Swift spoke out. In a statement on Instagram, she called the ticketing chaos excruciating to watch, but didn't name Ticketmaster directly. In December 2022, Taylor Swift fans sued Live Nation Entertainment over the debacle.
We have filed almost 1,000 cases against Ticketmaster, maybe more.
This is Jennifer Kinder, a lawyer who, along with John Genga, represents the 355 Swifties suing Live Nation Ticketmaster.
We're also adding what's called a RICO violation.
Since they control every aspect of the ticket purchasing experience and the live entertainment industry, that's where you get into not just monopolistic behavior, but racketeering behavior.
The lawsuit is still ongoing, but no matter how this case pans out, the fans' anger led to more scrutiny from Capitol Hill, culminating in a Senate hearing, and an even bigger, ongoing lawsuit against Live Nation Entertainment. In May 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice filed an antitrust lawsuit to break up the company. While monopolies aren't inherently illegal in the U.S., the Department of Justice alleges that Live Nation uses its dominance to intentionally stifle competition.
So what we do in the monopolization complaint is really explain all of the ways that Ticketmaster and Live Nation are this dominant intermediary that artists, venues, and fans cannot escape.
That's Doha Mekki, who helped launch the DOJ case. Since we spoke with Doha in late 2024, she's left her position at the DOJ. The lawsuit is still moving forward, with a trial scheduled for March 2026. The DOJ claims Live Nation Entertainment's flywheel business model enables the company to engage in anti-competitive practices.
It extracts service fees and revenue from fans. It is often a default ticketer at the venues where artists want to play. It owns 60 of the 100 largest amphitheaters. It has acquired promoters. It signs up artists through its Live Nation promotion business. And what we allege in the complaint is that this flywheel is really mutually reinforcing. You can't compete, you can't enter, and you can't escape Live Nation's flywheel.
Those allegedly anti-competitive tactics include locking venues into long-term exclusive contracts to limit competition from rival ticketers, and restricting artists' access to venues unless they agree to use Live Nation as their promoter. Live Nation executive Dan Wall has an entirely different take on the DOJ lawsuit.
Any allegation that our business practices are explaining these ticket prices is just cynical and untrue. If you take that $100 ticket, face value ticket, remember the promoter's going to make maybe $2 out of that. And then when you look over to the fee side, people always make the assumption that those fees are Ticketmaster fees or whatever the primary ticketing company is. They're really not. If you've got a $30 fee on top of that, then the ticketing company is going to get $4 or $5.
But the DOJ lawsuit claims that by acting as both the ticketer and the promoter, Live Nation can double dip and inflate fees and revenue, all at the expense of fans. Although ticketing may earn Live Nation just $4 to $5 for every 100 spent on tickets, the company's 2024 financial results reveal that it's actually the most profitable arm of the business based on adjusted operating income. Live Nation's CEO Michael Rapino said so himself in a 2018 earnings call. If we get 90 million customers in our flywheel on a positive basis, we can sell them more food, we can sell them more sponsors, we can sell them more ticketing services, all higher margin businesses than the low margin flywheel. When it comes to the DOJ's allegations of anti-competitive practices, Dan points out that it's industry standard for venues to have exclusive deals with promoters, and claims that competitors are doing the same thing.
The ticketing market evolved in a way that ticketing contracts are granted by venues on an exclusive basis. So AEG, who's our biggest competitor, also is a very major owner and operator of venues. They have lots of venues, and our policies are pretty much exactly the same. Sometimes we let our rivals in, sometimes we don't.
But the two aren't exactly created equal. Live Nation controls a dominant share of the U.S. concert promotion and venue operations market, far outpacing AEG. So today, the industry is at a standstill, and everyone is pointing the finger in a different direction. Live Nation Entertainment says high prices reflect demand. And ultimately, it's artists who set the base price for tickets, not them. So we talked to some musicians. And while the band we spoke to agrees that artists set these base prices, they point the finger right back at Live Nation for high ticket fees and controlling the industry. In January 2023, following the Taylor Swift lawsuit, musician Clyde Lawrence, of the band Lawrence, appeared at the U.S. Capitol to testify in a Senate hearing. Clyde shared that Live Nation often assumes the roles of promoter, ticketer, and venue operator simultaneously, a claim echoed in the DOJ antitrust case.
If they want to charge us $250 for a stack of 10 clean towels, they can and have.
In their song False Alarms, Lawrence even included the lyric, "Fame's overrated, Live Nation's a monopoly." Beyond the lyrics, band members were a bit more cautious when we caught up with them in their studio, saying that Live Nation isn't solely to blame.
There is a lot of consolidation, and part of working with Live Nation does mean that you are going to work with Ticketmaster, and part of working with AEG means that you are going to work with AXS or Access.
When we're ragging on Live Nation, in a lot of ways it's because they are the biggest company, and so they have the power to set industry standards. And that's a really powerful position to be in.
While Lawrence says companies like Live Nation Entertainment carry a lot of the blame, the band joins Live Nation in calling out another key player, the resale market.
I think one piece of ticketing that artists don't have any say in is the secondhand ticketing market.
In 2024, more than 250 musicians, including Billie Eilish, Lorde, and Fall Out Boy, signed a letter urging lawmakers to help reform the broken system of predatory resellers and secondary platforms. And there's data to back them up. This chart made by the Government Accountability Office in 2018 lists 3 studies that found that resale prices could range from about 15 to 112% more than the face value price. And a 2023 NITO study of 65 concerts found that resale tickets averaged nearly double the original ticket price. We talked to StubHub, the first online resale ticketing site.
In 2024, on average, 80% of our tickets were under $100. So I know that these Taylor Swifts, they get a lot of headlines, but they're actually not illustrative of the real experience on the platform.
Those numbers are based on StubHub's internal data, which they did not share with us. And like Live Nation, StubHub says they're not responsible for setting the ticket price.
We make suggestions to them, hey, your ticket's not selling, you might consider lowering them. So it's really up to the seller. We have no role in setting those prices. So it's really where the market is.
But that doesn't address the issues of fees, which are where StubHub makes its money. The same 2018 study from the Government Accountability Office found that resale platforms often charge higher fees, about 31% of the ticket price on average, compared to 27% on primary sales.
So the secondary marketplace, the resale marketplace, is enormously responsible for the inaccessibility that exists with live entertainment in this country.
That's Senator James Skoufis. He's been working on live event ticketing reforms and regulations in New York. And unlike primary ticketers, resellers like StubHub charge fees for both the buyer and the seller, allowing them to profit more from a ticket than the artists themselves.
So why do you think StubHub deserves more profit share than, say, people that are directly involved with the event itself?
I don't. I don't think that StubHub deserves more profit than the artists and the teams who are creating, the show and the event. We want to work directly with artists and teams.
StubHub and resale sites have also been sued in 2024. The DC Attorney General accused StubHub of deceptive drip pricing and junk fees, which are fees that are hidden until the end of the checkout process. The DC case is still pending. Meanwhile, the FTC finalized its junk fees rule for live event tickets, effective May 12, 2025. StubHub told Business Insider that the company is in compliance with the 2025 rule. Ultimately, StubHub brings the blame back to Live Nation.
They're under investigation. They have to point the finger at something else. When they talk about pointing the finger at resale, do they mention that they're also in the business?
Alex points out that Live Nation Entertainment also participates in the resale market, something singer Olivia Dean took issue with in November 2025. The criticism led Ticketmaster and Axis to agree to refund anyone who paid more than face value, as well as cap future resale ticket prices. And in the UK, the government announced in November 2025 that it would ban the reselling of tickets at a price above their original cost. In public statements, Live Nation Entertainment distanced itself from other resellers. Speaking of Ticketmaster's resale program, in 2025, the FTC sued Live Nation Entertainment for allegedly allowing bots to bypass security measures while profiting from the additional fees and inflated markups. Live Nation denies the FTC's claims, but say it's rolling out changes to its resale service. Even with those changes, artists take issue with the secondary market because they don't profit from inflated resale prices. To combat this, Ticketmaster introduced dynamic pricing back in 2011. Essentially, artists can increase ticket prices in real time when the demand is high and reap the benefits. Dynamic pricing has made headlines for pushing up the price of tickets. angering some artists, while others faced criticism from fans for using it.
How does it make you feel that people are paying like up to $500 for this show?
Angry, upset. We're not about that, to be honest.
I'm not about dynamic pricing.
Hell no. That's what I gotta say. They need to stop with this dynamic pricing that normal people can't afford and only the Nepo babies and the bots can buy. Cause who's buying a $500 ticket? Like, I gotta eat, I got groceries.
Stop scamming us, please.
After all the frustration and finger-pointing, there was one thing everyone we spoke to had in common. They still remember their favorite concert.
Mother's Day weekend, 1994. I had grown up in New England, so I had seen the band Fish.
That's a tough one. I was fortunate to go to one of the U2 concerts at the Sphere.
In college, a bunch of friends and I saw Gym Class Heroes.
My favorite concert ever was Bruce Springsteen in Spain.
Last year, we were able to go to Paul McCartney's Underplay at the Bowery Ballroom.
My daughter has been a Swiftie since about the age of 3. By doing that together, that we were less mom and daughter and parent and child, but we were more fellow females in the world that we live in today.
It reminds us why live music matters.
It was a night where essentially, for the first time ever in the band's career, the band's music I care for, they played essentially an entire improvised second set.
People were jumping and screaming to these songs that we've all kind of
And he even said from stage, he was like, oh, this reminds me of, you know,
back in the day.
In the early 60s before we were playing big venues. It was crazy.
But if the way the industry operates doesn't change, more and more fans could get priced out of these concert experiences that mean so much.
The current system is rigged against the large majority of fans, and the system every single year becomes more and more rigged as the industry stakeholders become more and more comfortable with jacking up prices. There are only 50,000 seats in that arena, 60,000 seats in that arena. It's a question of how many of those 50, 60,000 seats are filled by normal fans versus rich fans. I want more normal fans in those seats.
When Nintendo announced the price of its new console and game, the message from fans was clear. The Switch 2 costs $450. That's Nintendo's most expensive console release. But the console price isn't the only thing spurring outrage. Nintendo also announced that Mario Kart World would cost $80. That's the most expensive base game Nintendo has ever released. For more than a decade, video game prices were pretty much all the same, $60. That's also how much the last Mario Kart game cost. But Nintendo is making a bet that if it raises prices, fans will pay. And some industry experts say this pricing adjustment is long overdue.
Gaming hasn't updated its prices for a long time. In fact, they've only gone down in a sense.
We're in business to make money, which is exactly what we're about.
So why is an $80 game such a big deal?
70, right?
Nope, 80.
Damn. 80?
And why is Nintendo suddenly so expensive? In 2024, the industry brought in over $180 billion. That's over 6 times as much as the global film industry. But in the early 1980s, gaming was on the brink of collapse.
After several years of just explosive growth, suddenly quality assurance goes out the window. Everybody has a Space Invaders, everybody has a Pac-Man style game, and as a result, consumers, they don't know what to buy. It's a very confusing moment. Famously, E.T. comes out and the game is trash. It's just a disaster. And all of a sudden, it is as if the floor gets, like the bottom falls out of the industry.
People thought that video games were officially dead. Even the word games became a dirty word.
It's a fad, it's a toy, it's a temporary infatuation like a hula hoop or a roller skate.
Things were looking grim for the industry until Nintendo entered the scene and single-handedly revived video games.
Nintendo enters the US market and everybody thinks they're crazy. Their thinking was, in order to be successful in console gaming, we have to re-establish this sort of sense of value, make them feel like what's in here, what we're offering them, is actually worth their time.
In 1985, Nintendo marketed the Famicom console as an entertainment device rather than a toy or video game system, an effort to remove itself from the stigma of the crash. It also capped each third-party publisher's output to 5 games a year, incentivizing developers to focus on quality over quantity. And to regain consumer trust, Nintendo created a monthly magazine, Nintendo Power. It was even accompanied by a hotline players could call for help with Nintendo games. Every game published for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, carried an official Nintendo seal of quality.
This was Nintendo's way of showing that they have vetted and approved software for their platform. There were a couple of resourceful developers back in the 80s that would try to get games on the NES without approval, and they had to use some interesting methods to try to get by the copyright protection.
In Nintendo's quest for quality control, a key part of its strategy was developing its own games and IP in-house. In 1985, Nintendo released Super Mario Bros., and Mario remains its most recognizable character today. From there, its lineup only expanded.
They've had success, of course, with Mario, which is the same or bigger than Mickey Mouse at this point. Pokemon, which they own as well, partially. Zelda as well.
With quality games and repeatable, beloved characters came a loyal, rabid fan base.
There's over 2,000 people out there right now. This is the main entertainment center. I've tried to create kind of like what I've been calling little video game shadow boxes for each of the console generations from Nintendo. Here I've got a copy of Super Mario 64, signed by Charles Martinet, the original voice of Mario. If we ever had a fire, that would be the first thing I'm grabbing.
Drew Kennedy, who goes by Nintendrew online, owns an extensive Nintendo collection and was converted to a lifelong fan in the 90s, thanks to quality games and those beloved characters.
There it is. I'm in my 30s now. I started collecting when I was like 13, but I was a fan of Nintendo since long before then. My mom used to work as a babysitter on the side for one of her coworkers. Sometimes I would tag along. The dad of the family that she would babysit for, he had a Nintendo 64 set up in their living room with one game, with Donkey Kong 64. At the time, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, but I absolutely loved it. I would play through the first hour of Donkey Kong 64 every time I would go over there and reset the save file and play it again, and it was just absolutely a core memory for me. Up here is another one of my favorite oddball systems, the Virtual Boy. And this is the complete North American library. This cartridge alone is worth about $750 today.
But Nintendo wasn't the only one in the industry with a character-based strategy. In 1991, Sega made Sonic the Hedgehog the face of the Sega Genesis.
Sega follows the same formula. Let's have a mascot sort of lead the way, but differentiate. Sega was already competitive in the sense that they have a little bit more intense hardware. Ultimately, Sega, of course, produced the Dreamcast, still one of my personal favorites.
A new Sega console. Simply plug into a TV and play.
The launch of the Genesis marked the start of the first console war, where Nintendo and Sega battled it out to control the video game market in the United States.
Every Nintendo sold, from our point of view, is one person out there not buying Sega software.
Sega's market share went from just 6% in 1989 to as high as 65% by 1992. But while Sega marketed to older kids and teens and made some risky bets on console hardware, Nintendo stuck to its slow but steady strategy of family-friendly titles and commitment to quality. By 1995, Nintendo had regained its lead over Sega.
They just couldn't hack it. There's only so much room in the market for it, and Nintendo won out. And at some point, the difference between the different devices becomes marginal. And so then people go with what they know best. Are the games better? So other than Sonic, there's a few different IPs on the Sega platform and the ecosystem there. They're not quite as popular as the Nintendo ones.
Nintendo's secret to beating Sega is still the company's edge over its competitors 30 years later.
Everything was in service to making sure that game experience was top tier, especially from the marketing perspective. We were really showcasing the great work that the developers were doing, creating these magical experiences through games.
That's Krista Yang and Kit Ellis. They worked for Nintendo of America's public relations team for over a decade.
The thing that's really interesting about working at Nintendo is it's a very large company, but it's a very small company relatively in terms of other companies within gaming, within entertainment. Something that we heard about all the time was the concept of competing in the red ocean, which is what we had been doing previously with Sony and Microsoft, where everybody is kind of competing on the same points, versus the blue ocean, which is we don't really have anybody that we're competing with. We've created our own niche.
Nintendo is very much colorful and playful. Xbox tends to focus more on like shooters. They have a lot of racing games. PlayStation really leans into like more adult narratives and like deep stories. Now you have Astrobot from the PlayStation. It's like, okay, so 15 years later, you got your own Mario, but Nintendo has already claimed it because they've gotten it right from the beginning.
Nintendo's exclusive franchises like Zelda and Pokémon kept growing in popularity. But to access them, you needed to own a Nintendo console.
Nintendo likes to keep its own titles on its own platforms, and it's one of the few companies that can do it. There's no Nintendo games on Steam. There's no Nintendo games on Xbox. That's for a reason.
This exclusivity has allowed Nintendo to keep game prices high and rarely put them on sale. Take Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example. It's 8 years old and is still sold at full price on Nintendo's website. Even a pre-owned version costs $50.
Nintendo has always positioned itself as just like a premium experience. Ever since Nintendo has re-established value in the industry, they haven't let it go.
That's something that we would have a lot of conversations about was let's be careful that we're not doing anything that's going to devalue our products, either literally in terms of dropping the price or in more of an ethereal way where it's going to make our consumers think less of them.
When I was growing up, I always kind of was drawn towards Nintendo and PC gaming as well, because it seemed to me at least that about 90% of the library that would come out for Xbox or PlayStation would usually also come out on PC.
That lack of exclusivity can mean massive price cuts. Take God of War, Sony's once exclusive top-selling game on the PlayStation 4. It retailed for the standard $60 in 2018, but has now been as low as $20 on Steam.
You can pretty reliably expect that those games are going to go on sale not long after they come out. Whereas when it comes to Nintendo, those games are reliably going to stay at that same price point for years. Those are the ones where I will sit in line or put in a pre-order to try to get them on day one because I want to be able to experience it as soon as possible.
So why does Nintendo seem to be the only one to maintain premium prices?
Nintendo has managed to capture and establish a portfolio of things like Pokemon and Mario and Zelda that are of such high quality. These are at the top of the food chain in terms of experiences, and they know that, and so they very carefully curate them so that they don't have to negotiate on price.
I think Apple is a good comparison in terms of a company. An iPhone is not so exorbitantly priced that people simply can't get it, but it is a little bit more than the other options that are out there. But there's a strong belief that the reason that it's priced that way, that the added benefit that you're getting versus the others is well known and very clear.
While Mario Kart World is the most expensive base game Nintendo has ever released, the Switch 2 is also Nintendo's most expensive console at $450. But that's still cheaper than most competing gaming systems, which is another part of Nintendo's strategy.
Throughout the console generations, they've generally been the cheapest option, and I think that is right in line with their kind of family-friendly strategy. They've wanted to have as many people as possible get access to their product.
A prime example of this success was the Wii, priced at $250 and bundled with Wii Sports in North America. That's half the price of the PlayStation 3 at launch.
The Wii was so much fun, and it was something very different.
It sounds too good to be true, being able to play a game of tennis in your lunch hour, and you don't even have to take your suit off.
It's very friendly, as opposed to like the dead serious Xboxes of the world and the PlayStations. It was like, hey, this is a grown man kind of thing. I remember playing Wii tennis with my mother-in-law, and she's beating me.
Cheaper, more broadly appealing consoles means a wider audience to sell exclusive games to. Evidence suggests that most people buy Nintendo hardware to play Nintendo games. Between 2018 and 2023, about 80% of Nintendo's overall software revenue came from its first-party games. Even Hiroshi Yamauchi, a former president of Nintendo, once said, "Sony is a company where hardware leads and software follows. Nintendo is the opposite." But is Nintendo's fan base big and loyal enough to pay higher prices? We went to a Switch meetup to find out.
Don't love the idea of $80 games. $60 games are already quite a lot. And I don't know if I will get as many $80 games, honestly, because that's just a lot of money in general, especially right now where I think a lot of people are struggling financially.
Switch and Play members live streamed their initial reaction to the Switch 2 console and game prices.
This is going to be a bit of a bigger pill to swallow, but I'm seeing the price of how much Mario Kart costs.
70, right?
Nope, 80.
Damn. 80?
While the stream was going on, like, it wasn't just myself, Mike, Peter, and Christian in the video, but also people were in the chat that were from Switch and Play having that reaction on stream. When we realized that, oh, it's actually going to be, $80, it's like, wow, like that's really steep.
I'll take it, but man, that's going to be quite the something for families to try to buy a system for a Switch 2.
I thought it was going to be like 400. I expected maybe 500 if they were going to pack in a game. But the $80 like Mario Kart price was definitely a shocker.
Some fans are finding reprieve in the $500 bundle version of the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World.
My only respite for this is that, like, if it's bundled in the package, it's like $30 less. It's $50 basically. So I'm taking that as like, oh, I'll just go digital and save myself $30. So it's a little iffy.
But even that deal doesn't have fans entirely sold. There's been backlash online about the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, a mini-game and tech demo collection that costs $10. The Switch 2 also has a button for the new Game Chat feature, which eventually requires a paid subscription.
Looking back on the Wii in particular, I remember, Wii Sports was the killer app for the Wii. Like, everybody wanted to play Wii Sports, and that was a free pack-in with the Wii. So I think it was very easy for a lot of people to justify. It would be nice to see them do the same thing for the Switch too.
Even Reggie Fils-Aimé, the former Nintendo of America president, seemed to take a subtle dig at it, tweeting about how he fought for the Wii Sports to be a free pack-in. Releasing a new product at an all-time high price is always a risk. In 2011, Nintendo released the 3DS for $250, $80 higher than the DSi that preceded it, only to drop the price by exactly $80 5 months later. Critics said that the high price and lack of launch games left little motivation to upgrade.
Sony did the same thing with the PlayStation 3. You come out with a price point and then you realize you're wrong.
Some analysts speculate that Nintendo raised prices in anticipation of tariffs.
They say, around the Switch 2, oh, we think it's a premium experience that warrants this higher price point. Yes, and also there is a huge amount of tariff-based volatility in the market. When you build things that are manufactured in China and have to be shipped to the US, it's very expensive. And so they have to bake that into their models.
We can't verify how big an impact tariffs had on the price of the new console or games. But fans were fearful that the Switch 2 could get more expensive when Nintendo delayed the pre-order date in the US and Canada after President Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs in early April. But it didn't end up raising the price, and Nintendo's president denied that tariffs influenced pricing. Many balk at an $80 price tag for a single game. But adjusted for inflation, $80 isn't as pricey as it seems. Take a look at this catalog from 1997. Super Mario 64 cost $60. That's around $119 today. In 2020, some companies started selling games for $70, the first price adjustment in decades. That'd be around $86 today. Take a look at this chart. It shows the price of Nintendo's top-selling titles since the NES, adjusted for inflation. Games have actually gotten cheaper. Some say $80 games will be the new normal. One former PlayStation executive said Nintendo was pulling the Band-Aid right off for the industry. And Yost says it's long overdue.
The cost of game development has gone up. If you compare, say, the cost of a franchise like Call of Duty, a decade ago, a brand new Call of Duty game would cost about $45 million to develop. Today, that's about $700 million. Grand Theft Auto 6 has been in development for about 11 years, and it has a budget of a rumored $2 billion. The Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, cost $1.5 billion and took 6 years. And so we're already double all this, and it's not even out yet. During the same period that costs have exponentially increased, the price point of a game has barely moved at all. Something's got to give. They have to either sell more copies or they have to increase the price.
Nintendo says prices will be variable, but other companies are already following suit. Just 1 month after Nintendo showed off the new Mario Kart, Microsoft announced that some upcoming first-party games would cost $80. Even if that change is overdue, consumer perception matters. The Switch 2 and its games feel expensive. In the US, consumer sentiment has declined every month of 2025. People worry about the economy and feel like their money buys them less than it used to. But despite the outrage, some say $80 is more than worth it.
An average single-player game, 40 to 60 hours to finish? Where can you get 60 hours of entertainment for $80? Show me. What roller coaster goes on for 80 hours?
A good rule of thumb that I and a lot of my friends tend to use is the kind of like $1 per hour rule. Nintendo games offer a ton of value and also just an unparalleled replayability. You can always come back, and especially with the specific kind of nostalgia I have for Nintendo's experiences, like I will never stop going back and playing my favorite Nintendo 64 games or my favorite DS games.
Of course, that relies on Nintendo maintaining the quality it's known for. Games like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, with its glitches and performance issues, left a bad taste for many fans. But Nintendo's cultural hold on fans is strong, both with younger audiences it brings in through movies and theme parks, and the older fans who have been with Nintendo for decades.
I think it's certainly become more common and more acceptable for people like me to stick with their fandom into adulthood, and it's definitely less of a social death sentence to be a huge nerd in 2025. And even looking at the marketing for the original Nintendo Switch, it's clear that that's not lost on Nintendo.
Many fans share Drew's sentiment. The Switch 2 pre-orders sold out in a few hours.
People will buy it anyways. My forecasts are 12 to 15 million units in the first year. They have such a huge install base. The loyalty's there. They have so many fans. The IP is so strong. They will sell like hotcakes.
Kit and Krista, however, share a much more cautionary tale.
It's going to sell very well, but it's not going to reach the same heights as the original Nintendo Switch, and part of that is the price.
You know, once all those people buy Mario Kart at $80, what about the next rung of people outside of that core fan group? What about, you know, the more casual video game player? I think it's going to depend on the software, the games that Nintendo will announce beyond what they have for the rest of 2025.
If we want to sustain the success of the video games industry and have it continue to make these experiences that we like to enjoy and play and share with others, they're going to have to adjust the economic model, and that includes its price point.
I think the concern from fans is that variable pricing means that the price can only go up. But I think variable pricing where there's actually kind of a lower range of price points for games is a great opportunity for Nintendo as well.
If any viewers are struggling to enter this space and want to play Nintendo games, I would give the advice to look backward and try to find some that have already stood the test of time and have solidified themselves as classics. I mean, you could probably pick up a copy of Star Fox 64 for less than $10 in any major city. That's a fun weekend.
You probably know beef is getting more expensive, but do you know why? Let's take a look at the meat aisle in this grocery store. It seems like you have plenty of options, but most of this beef is processed by just 4 companies. Together, they control about 80% of the market.
I call them the beef cartel.
The Big Four haven't been convicted of any wrongdoing, but the Department of Justice is investigating how this kind of consolidation impacts what you pay. Not to mention antitrust and collusion lawsuits from retailers like Target and McDonald's. A pound of ground beef cost about $6.89 in the US on average. That's 80% more expensive than in 2019. For US cattle ranchers, you'd think high retail prices would at least translate to more profit, but they say they're feeling the squeeze too.
The more them industries consolidate, the easier it is for them to up the price and cut us out.
Droughts, high production costs, and fewer cows are pushing prices up. But that's not the whole story. We follow the supply chain from the farm all the way to your table to find out what's actually making America's beef so expensive. To understand how the industry became so consolidated, we have to go back nearly 7 decades. Before the 1960s, beef was shipped as whole carcasses to butchers who would divide and package it themselves.
You won't be disappointed in these steaks, ma'am.
When meat packers started cutting and boxing beef right next to the slaughterhouse, it transformed the industry, shifting control from local butchers to centralized plants. These large operations were far more efficient and made it harder for small ones to compete. The Nixon administration pushed for this kind of growth across the farming industry. During his tenure in the early 70s, the US Secretary of Agriculture routinely told producers to get big or get out. By the late 70s, consolidation in the meatpacking industry had started to take shape. Unlike today, the 4 biggest producers controlled just 25% of the market. Technological advancements in the 80s improved efficiency and scalability, and once bigger became cheaper, deregulation made it even easier for large companies to take over. Throughout this time, regulators and academics raised their concerns about the effects of consolidation, but it continued largely unchecked. After decades of mergers and acquisitions, today's Big Four have absorbed or replaced the previous dominant firms and boosted their market share to more than 80%. This lack of competition gives the Big Four a lot of power. But how does this make the beef you buy at the grocery store more expensive than it's ever been? To understand that, we have to go to the very start of the supply chain, where even before consolidation concerns, cattle ranchers are struggling.
We're 7 miles from the nearest asphalt road, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Eric Roper runs a cow-calf operation in South Dakota, and calving season is about to begin.
A cow's gestational cycle is 9 months. You get 1 crack at it, a year. My cows are out on winter grass. This is the easy time of year, because as long as the grass is feeding them, I don't have to.
Grass is a precious resource when your ranch sits on a drought zone like Eric's. As of May 2026, 61% of US cattle were on land affected by drought. When drought dries up Eric's grass, he loses his cheapest and least labor-intensive feed source. So he has to buy feed, which adds to his expenses.
It costs roughly $1,100 a year to run a cow. When it used to cost $500 to $800.
The total operating costs for cow-calf operations jumped 29% between 2020 and 2025. And because it costs more to raise cattle, ranchers like Eric are more eager to sell off their stock rather than keep some to maintain or build the size of their herd.
You do that all over the United States with this older generation cashing in on a high market, that's a whole lot of cows gone.
That's led to the lowest total herd size in the US since 1951. All of this puts ranchers in a tough spot before they ever sell a single cow. While meat packers don't typically buy directly from ranchers, the selling stage is where their impact on the market becomes clearer. We'll explain. A rancher like Eric sells many of his calves to feedlots, where they go to grow until they're ready for slaughter. After about 4 to 6 months, feedlots sell cattle to meat packers. Roughly 80% are processed by one of the big four. Feedlots base what they can pay on what they expect to get for finished cattle later. When packers bid lower, what ranchers get paid shrinks too.
I'm a price taker. As a rancher, you're a price taker.
After the pandemic, meat packer profits rose. 2 of the big four reported record earnings in 2022.
This can't possibly happen in a competitive market.
And during the pandemic, the difference between what a rancher was paid for cattle and the prices meat packers set reached its highest peak, all while consumer prices also went up.
Back in the spring of 2020, the meat packing plants were all over the news.
Well, last month we saw a huge price jump at the meat counter.
Meat prices are expected to jump by up to 20%.
We will all be paying more for meat at the grocery store for months to come.
That leap prompted the DOJ to ask if meat packers were illegally coordinating to keep the price they pay for cattle low and wholesale prices high. A wide gap between the two could mean more money for the meat packers.
Is there or was there ever an agreement to cooperate together on issues impacting supply or pricing?
No.
No.
Not that I am aware of.
Outside of the House Agricultural Committee meeting, the companies didn't publicly say much about the matter at the time, and none of the big four responded to our request for comment. The pandemic did cause some changes. Labor shortages and plant closures contributed to higher beef prices. The Meat Institute, the primary lobbying group representing the big four meat packers, says other input costs like energy and transportation are also a factor. At the same time, the demand for beef increased.
Because all of a sudden we were eating, all of our meals at home in many parts of the country because of the stay-at-home restrictions. And so a decrease in supply, increase in demand, prices had nowhere to go but up.
Ranchers had already filed an antitrust suit against the big four the year before COVID hit. The lawsuit alleged that since at least 2015, meat packers were working together to keep cattle prices artificially low, even as beef prices rose. Tyson responded by saying, as with similar lawsuits concerning chicken and pork, there's simply no merit to the allegations that Tyson colluded with competitors. That case resulted in an $83.5 million settlement with JBS, but the company admitted no wrongdoing. Neither the ranchers' suit nor the DOJ investigation led to major changes to the industry. But fast forward to 2025, and ranchers were getting record high prices for their cattle because demand was high and supply was low. The problem? Like Eric said, it already costs a lot more to raise cattle these days. The other problem? Prices can shift quickly. And that's what happened in October of 2025.
We are working on beef, and I think we have a deal on beef.
President Donald Trump's plan to import more beef from Argentina was meant to increase supply and reduce consumer prices. What immediately happened was that cattle prices dropped because of the uncertainty the announcement caused. After that dip, some ranchers have estimated losing $200 to $300 per cow sold, all while consumer prices remain high.
We all know and love good prices, but after 2014 and 15, we know they can be yanked out from under us so fast and put us back in the line of almost going broke, that the generational gap of baby boomers and a little younger than that are cashing out in this good market.
6 years after the original investigation, the DOJ has announced another probe into the same four companies.
These companies now have an unprecedented ability to wield market power.
In a Truth Social post from November 2025, Trump said he asked the Justice Department to investigate the meatpacking industry once again. His reasoning was nearly identical to the first time, accusing the Big Four of driving up the price of beef through illicit collusion, price fixing, and price manipulation. Meatpackers maintain they've still done nothing wrong. In a statement to Business Insider, the Meat Institute said the packers have been losing money for more than 2 years because of record high cattle prices. And a JBS USA spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal that the company operates in a highly regulated industry and is committed to complying with all applicable regulations. Data from the USDA shows that prices ranchers get paid for cattle are generally rising faster than wholesale prices meatpackers charge. Still, wholesale prices are on the rise, and this time around, the Big Four's business partners are suing them as well. Companies like Target, BJ's Wholesale, and McDonald's say there's also collusion and price gouging on their side of the supply chain. This isn't just a legal drama, it's showing up in your lunch. High wholesale prices mean changes in retail too.
Our sort of house burger is a fried onion cheeseburger that is an authentic burger that was made in Oklahoma.
Hamburger America opened in 2023 as an homage to the history of the hamburger.
They were meant to be cheap. They were meant to be affordable.
Burgers at this New York City joint start at $7.75, 25 cents more than they cost last year. The restaurant says it's absorbing the rest of its increased expenses. Its wholesale beef costs are up by more than 20% since 2023.
I mean, we're paying in this restaurant more than double what I started paying, when my first hamburger restaurant 17 years ago.
Hamburger America sources its ground beef from Schweid & Sons, a small family-owned ground beef processor in New Jersey. Schweid & Sons sources some of its beef from the Big Four, so even small businesses often rely on the larger system.
We work very closely with our supplier to try to maintain the price as tight as we possibly can. They're under pressure also, and they have to pass along their costs.
Andrew is focused on passing as little cost to the customer as possible.
It's very important to us that the hamburger is affordable.
And there are certain things Andrew says Hamburger America will never change.
We won't change our quality, we won't change our sizes at all, based upon rising costs. We will not do that.
The company's current strategy to avoid raising prices further is a simple one.
We hope to do more business and bring more customers in so that, at the end of the day, if we do more business, we can afford to sell it at a slightly lower margin.
If beef prices continue to rise, Hamburger America will have to rethink its plan.
Even in this restaurant, since we opened in 2023, our beef prices are up over 20%. I mean, if it went up 30-40% overnight, we might have to have a different conversation.
There are a few things that could lower beef prices. The Big Four could face new regulations, or demand could drop. But
for meaningful price relief, I think we need supply to increase or loosen.
And for supply to increase, ranchers have to be able to afford expansion. Eric says to do so, one thing is crucial: more competition.
We don't need government bailouts. We don't need more government crop insurance or some kind of new cattle insurance. We need to fix the market to put some producer confidence back in this game.
The Meat Institute agrees that more cows is the answer. It told us that to get there, it supports increased access to foreign markets and easing of regulatory burdens for cattle producers. In a statement to Business Insider, a USDA spokesperson pointed to the agency's Beef Action Plan, an effort to rebuild herd sizes through things like expanding grazing on federal lands and reducing inspection fees for small processors. Eric says if nothing changes, independent American cattle ranchers might be a thing of the past.
All these small towns you drove through to get here, they're drying up. The stores on Main Street are closing. And it's because our ag economy, Trump's first administration, the ag secretary said, well, get big or get out.
Sound familiar?
You cannot consolidate a market without bad repercussions, and we're living it. The older generation is like, I can't do this. The younger generation is like, I'm not working that hard for no pay. My hope for the future is we give this next generation a chance to ranch. and not be controlled.
We gave these two shoppers the same exact grocery list. But there's just one difference. This shopper is only buying food that has this label. Organic iceberg lettuce cost $5.99, more than double the price of regular iceberg lettuce. A pound of organic ground beef cost $14.99, about 80% more than a pound of regular ground beef. And this pint of organic blueberries cost $12.99, 44.5% more than the regular pint. In total, the all-organic shopper spent 72.4% more. The organic label was designed to give Americans a trustworthy standard for healthier food. But decades later, it's become a system that rewards large companies and leaves many small farmers behind.
We can't use the O word, the organic word, on any packaging, any promotions, any advertising.
So what makes organic food so expensive? And if some food grown organically can't be labeled as such, is organic really worth the extra cost? Before the 1940s, most food grown in the U.S. would have been considered organic by today's standards. But that changed in the aftermath of World War II. Chemicals originally developed for combat were repurposed as synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. Farmers began using them on farms across the U.S. And it worked. Crop yields increased and food production surged. But this practice sparked a backlash, centered on one chemical in particular. It's a mouthful to say, so people call it DDT for short. DDT was originally used to protect soldiers from malaria, but it is also really good at controlling crop-damaging pests.
Less dependence upon nature and more control in managing his crop.
It soon became one of the most widely used pesticides in the world. Then in 1962, marine biologist Rachel Carson took direct aim at DDT in her book Silent Spring. She warned that the chemical was contaminating ecosystems, disrupting food chains, and endangering human health. The book laid the groundwork for the organic movement, and demand for organic food increased throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But
there was no consensus about what organic was, like what was the definition of organic. So some states had their own organic standards and there were private organic standards.
That all changed in 1990. That year, Congress passed the Organic Foods Production Act. It led to the creation of the National Organic Program and a unified definition of organic. Food made without synthetic pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, and later genetically modified organisms.
It started this movement towards a national standard, which really was helpful to the industry because people knew what they were buying when they bought organic.
In 2002, the U.S. Department of Agriculture took it a step further by establishing uniform national standards for the production, handling, and labeling of organic food, creating the USDA Organic Seal. Today, organic food in the U.S. is a $70.1 billion industry, so there's a lot of money to be made if you can get the organic label. We traveled to Sonora, Mexico to see what it takes and how much it costs to get the official seal. Wholesome Family Farms runs 86 acres of farmland in both the U.S. and Mexico.
What we do here is all organic. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. These are what we call tomatoes on the vine, 4 or 5 per cluster. These are cherries on the vine. We grow our long English cucumbers or Euro cucumbers.
The produce grown here is sold year-round at retail grocery stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts. Even though Wholesome has been around for nearly a century, it received its first organic certification in 1992, before turning the whole company organic in 2010.
My dad went to school in California in the 60s and read the book Silent Spring. He began experimenting in the 80s, and then my brothers and I came to the business in the late 90s, early 2000s, and in 2010 we decided to convert the whole company to organic.
Making the switch to organic wasn't cheap. Even before certification costs, there are tons of other expenses that go into organic farming, like these $5.5 million 6-acre greenhouses, where Wholesome grows 65,000 tomato plants. Greenhouse growing is a popular method for organic farming because it can prevent pests from reaching the plants. It also helps farmers control temperature and humidity for crops, which can help prevent fungal diseases. But greenhouses like these are a big investment. Just one of these structures can cost $55,000 a year to maintain. And greenhouses are just the first step in Wholesome's fight against pests.
En el Departamento de Plagas y Enfermedades realizamos liberaciones para el control de mosca araña y araña roja. En esta ocasión realizamos la liberación de Eretmocerus para el control de mosca blanca.
All this hands-on work comes with a price. Wholesome says it pays 10% more in labor costs just from pest control and prevention.
Once the infestation is in the greenhouse, it's very hard to correct it. They're natural systems, so that means that you can't really control it all.
Natural pest control methods like these are typically less effective than pesticides, which can eliminate infestations more quickly.
In a conventional field, what you could do is use a pesticide that is strong enough. You might not be able to harvest for a week or two, but at least you've salvaged the crop. For us, an event like that would mean clean it out and start all over again. So we are scouting for whiteflies, injectatas, aphids, much more carefully than a conventional grower would. Yields is what really kind of drives the economics in agriculture.
Our ability to produce is hindered by all these circumstances that we have to deal with, and it reduces our yield for sure.
To retain its certification, Wholesome Farms has to pass an inspection every year.
They'll check all our records of what we did through the year, what inputs we used, how many and how much products we actually harvest, we sold.
There's also a lot of tracking of providing traceability to make sure there is compliance with the standards.
They will look for evidence that we're actually doing our prevention program. They will look to make sure that the crop is there.
Wholesome says all of these additional steps in organic operations cost it 20 to 25% more than they would on a conventional farm. And that's all before the price of the certification itself. According to the USDA, the average annual organic certification cost rose from approximately $1,500 in 2014 to around $2,800 by 2019. On top of that, new farms seeking certification have to pay an application fee. And for farmers renewing certification, there's an annual renewal fee.
We typically spend about $35,000 US in certifying the company, and we have to abide by a regulatory framework established by the USDA.
For large farms like Wholesome, these costs are a drop in the bucket. In 2025, Wholesome Family Farms made approximately $105 million in revenue.
I think the USDA organic seal, which you can see here in our boxes, is what people know that that's something that they can trust.
According to the 2022 USDA Census of Agriculture, 75% of all U.S. agricultural sales come from large farming operations, a consolidation trend that extends across the organic sector as well. Some small farms like this one used to be certified organic, but no longer are because they say they can't afford the certification fees, even though they still follow organic requirements. Harry Jones has run his family-owned blueberry farm since 2018. Unlike Wholesome, Bridge Avenue Berries primarily focuses on a single crop.
We have almost 7 acres of blueberries out there, about 3,800 plants.
We filmed with them weeks before the start of blueberry season.
We are in central Pennsylvania, right along the West Branch of the Susquehanna River, which gives us wonderful soil, which is perfect for growing blueberries.
When he and his wife Susan first bought the farm, they saw the benefits of investing in USDA organic certification.
If you're USDA certified organic, that's an accomplishment, that's an achievement, and people are going to notice that and hopefully build more value in the marketplace than what we would have if we were not organic.
They transitioned to a certified organic farm in 2021.
Being USDA certified organic certainly opened up opportunities, and the public perception was, ooh, clean blueberries to eat. This is good stuff, you know? We had people stop here who said, man, I've looked for an organic blueberry farm for a long time. You're here. We had 3 local newspapers put it out when we became certified organic, and we did see sales increase. We saw people coming to the farm who had never been here. And so that was good.
At the time, Harry and Susan sold their blueberries for $3.50 a pint.
We knew we had more costs, and we knew we had to charge more for our berries, and so we did.
Still, the cost of staying certified organic started to add up.
The biggest thing was the $1,400 a year going out the door. We're a small blueberry farm, so that took a large chunk out of our net profit, really.
Harry and Susan decided not to maintain their USDA certification 3 years later in 2024, but they've continued to farm using organic methods. Just like the farmers at Wholesome, they use natural solutions and techniques to prevent pests and fungal disease.
We put out sticky traps, and we look for a fruit fly that likes to lay its eggs in the blueberries. But as soon as we see them hit the sticky traps, we will apply a spray. It's called Grandivo. It's derived from soil funguses that some scientists someplace found, which I'm grateful for. And that controls our blueberry fruit fly population. We spray a lime sulfur mix early in the spring to control Phomopsis tip blight, which is a fungal disease.
Harry says he uses organic fertilizers to keep the farm soil healthy.
You take care of that soil, you produce a plant that's healthy and vibrant, and then it produces berries that smell like blueberries, that taste like blueberries, and this is proof that growing organically really makes a difference in the quality of food that we eat.
Despite their all-natural growing methods, Harry says,
we can't use the O word, the organic word, on any packaging, any promotions, any advertising.
Without organic certification, Harry and Susan have to charge less than certified competitors. That's pushed them to sell locally or directly to consumers, which gives them control over pricing but a smaller customer base.
We sell by the pound, and I think this past year we were at $2.70 a pound, $2.70 a pound. It would be nice to be able to charge more, but do you charge more and not sell your product? Or do you charge what the traffic will bear and sell your product? We're not going broke, but are we recovering everything that we put into this? No, we're probably not.
So how do all these costs show up for consumers? Turns out plenty of Americans are still willing to pay extra for that little green label. According to Fortune, nearly 90% of U.S. shoppers recognize the USDA organic seal, and more than 70% trust it.
Consumers believe in it, and they believe that if it says it's organic, that it actually is organic. I think that there still is trust in the government to regulate food.
Demand is especially high among younger shoppers. A 2025 Organic Trade Association survey found millennials and Gen Z buy the most organic food, driven by a desire to avoid pesticides, GMOs, synthetic hormones, and antibiotics. But is organic always the healthier option? The short answer? It depends. Organic foods tend to have lower levels of pesticide residue, and some studies show higher levels of certain antioxidants, especially in produce. But when it comes to overall vitamins, minerals, and macronutrients, the differences are often minimal.
Some researchers have found that there's a halo effect, so people think organic is more healthy, even though that really hasn't been proven. There's the safety side that it wouldn't have pesticide residue, but there's no scientific consensus that it's healthier.
And not all foods benefit equally when it comes to organic. Take a look at the groceries our shoppers bought earlier. According to the Environmental Working Group's 2026 Shopper's Guide, organic avocados and bananas may offer limited benefits in reducing pesticide exposure because they have thick skins that typically don't get eaten. Meanwhile, foods eaten whole, like blueberries, are more likely to retain residues if not grown organically. Meat and dairy products can also have higher pesticide exposure through animal feed, making organic options often the better choice.
I buy both conventional and organic, so I'm not just set on only having organic. I actually am more into the quality of the produce.
For organic food consumers, there is some good news. The price gap between organic and conventional food is shrinking. In 2021, prices for organic produce cost about 71% more than conventional ones. Today, that gap is closer to 61%. That shift is being driven by more organic production and better supply chain efficiency, which have brought organic prices down. But organic still comes at a premium, even as grocery prices have risen across the board.
If things continue the way that they're going, I expect that it will be for the higher income people and not for the lower income people.
Meanwhile, the USDA gives small farmers financial relief through the Organic Certification Cost Share Program, which reimburses organic farmers for up to 75% of certification costs. Congress failed to fund the program for 2025, and funding for 2026 still hasn't been released. Other farmers have instead turned to alternative natural certifications, like Harry and Susan. Bridge Avenue Berries has been certified naturally grown since 2024. Certified Naturally Grown is a grassroots program that follows similar standards to organic, but uses peer inspections rather than government certifiers, making it more affordable for small farmers.
We're not a mega bazillion pound blueberry producer. We're a small producer. And they also function off of the National Organic Program.
Harry says it's also been more cost-effective.
So instead of paying $1,400 or $1,450 a year, we pay about $350 a year. There are often times that I have to explain, we are still farming organically. We've just changed our certifying agency. And as soon as you say that, people are like, oh, okay, that's good. We just think it's a good fit. And we wanted our customers to be comfortable with the fact that we're being audited, we're being checked, we're being kept honest. And we want them to know that they're going home with good food.
I'm at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, and I just paid $7.99 for this hot dog from concessions. But less than a mile away, I could get a nearly identical one for just $2.29. That means I'm paying 249% more at the stadium. And it's not just hot dogs. A 24-ounce beer at the stadium costs nearly 92% more than it would at a bar down the street. And this burger costs nearly 70% more than it would at a restaurant in the same neighborhood.
I love the Dodgers, but this shit sucks.
Last year, I paid $11 for a bottle of water at a Lakers game. Instead of just accepting it, I asked a simple question: why? What I found was that most stadiums use a kind of monopoly power. There are 39 places to buy food at Dodger Stadium, but they're all operated by or in partnership with one company.
We need to make sure that the corporations in this country are not squeezing every single extra dollar off of the consumers' backs.
The thing is, fans helped pay for most of the stadiums across the US with their taxes. And it's that fact that could be the key to stopping stadium food from being so expensive in the future. In my search to understand how we got to $8 hot dogs, I found 3 turning points that transformed stadium operations into mini monopolies. First, the rise of the all-powerful concessionaire. America's earliest stadiums didn't have dozens of concession stands like today. Instead, independent vendors would flock to games and sell snacks like popcorn, peanuts, and, of course, hot dogs. Those vendors set their own prices. It wasn't until the late 1800s that independent vendors began consolidating into larger concession businesses and signing exclusive contracts with stadiums or teams. So instead of multiple independent vendors, only one vendor or company would be allowed to sell food at a given stadium. This significantly limited vendor competition.
They were able to knit together their contracts at several stadiums and arenas that happen to be in the same market. So it'd be very typical for one vendor to specialize in a particular area of the country, like in the Northeast.
For example, a concessionaire named Harry M. Stevens founded Harry M. Stevens Incorporated, a company that provided concessions to 3 of New York's major league teams at the time, the Yankees, Giants, and the Dodgers.
He would establish his pricing based on a cut. So if a hot dog was 10 cents, then he would get the cut of that hot dog. They actually became much more sophisticated before the teams themselves became stadium operators.
Even with less competition, from the 1950s to the 70s, prices stayed low. For example, at Brooklyn's Ebbets Field in 1956, a hot dog and a beer cost 60 cents total, roughly $7 to $7.50 in today's money. 2 decades later, that price hadn't moved much. In 1976, a hot dog and a beer sold for $1.25 at Queens Shea Stadium, or about $7.53 today.
Nobody was trying to get rich running these venues. They were simply trying to provide an amenity for the folks who were coming to the venue.
Most stadiums still follow this concessions model. Like I mentioned, there are 39 different restaurants at Dodger Stadium, but their prices are all set by or in conjunction with Levy Restaurants, which has provided all the concessions for the stadium since 2005. And it wouldn't be long before concession companies and teams wanted to cash in. That leads us to the second shift, one in ownership. Before the 80s, most US stadiums were owned and operated by local governments, which meant cities got a share of the profits from food sales. But by the time the 90s rolled around, many US stadiums were in need of major facelifts. In that decade alone, 95 new sports venues were either built, renovated, under construction, or in the planning stages. This transition wasn't cheap. The average cost of building a sports facility rose from $3.8 million in the 1950s to $200 million in the 90s.
Shea Stadium, a spanking new park, is dedicated by Mayor Robert Wagner and manager Casey Stengel of the New York Mets, who have found a new home.
To get these expensive construction projects done, teams started contributing financially to the stadium's construction.
While they weren't paying for all of the venue, they were typically in for, estimates would say, about 40% of the cost of building the venue on average.
Take the Baltimore Orioles, who contributed $9 million to the construction of luxury skyboxes at Camden Yards. And during the construction of the Seattle Mariners ballpark in 1999, the team contributed $145 million toward the $517 million budget. With bigger investments came a new type of contract. Take a look at this lease agreement between Yankee Stadium and the New York City Industrial Development Agency. Under this agreement, signed in 2006, the Yankees manage and control the stadium's operations, keeping all revenues derived from concessions facilities. Essentially, sports teams said, if we're going to help build and operate the stadiums, we want all, or at least most, of the profits.
And this is when we start to see the steady increase in concessions pricing.
Across the NFL, the average price of a 16-ounce domestic beer was about $10.96 in 2025. That year, the most expensive one sold for $16.99 at Northwest Stadium, home of the Washington Commanders. To put that into context, this 12-pack of 16-ounce beer cost me $14, or roughly $1.17 per bottle. I went to Dodger Stadium to see just how much a single day at the park would cost me. Could I just have the Dodger dog and a bottle of water? It's pretty good. Worth $8? I don't think so. Hi, can I get the Stella? And then, do you guys have the Dodgeritas here? 2 drinks are $65. Could I get your bacon cheeseburger? One. Just one. In total, I spent over $100 at the park for a hot dog, a burger, and a few drinks. And I'm not alone. How much do you think you spent on concessions, food, and drink today?
Around $250. 7 to 8 drinks. And then we got the helmet and nachos. And that's about it. Yeah, it's a lot of, the drinks are a lot.
How much did you spend on like drinks in total?
Yeah, I probably had 4 or 5, maybe $100. Realistically, I spent like $66.
Okay. Essentially, we're paying for the contracts because you're paying $45 for parking and then $26 for beer.
How much did you spend on concessions, food and drink at the stadium today?
About like $350, probably 4.
Do you come to like the games a lot?
No, that's why, girl. If I come a lot, I'm getting that in my purse.
Technically, she could bring in her own snacks. Dodger Stadium, along with most MLB stadiums, allow outside food and non-alcoholic drinks. But baseball stadiums are an outlier. That's because other major league sports like the NFL, NBA, and NHL generally restrict outside food and drinks. This lack of competition turns spectators into a captive audience. We've made it to the third shift. In the case of stadiums,
you have thousands of fans in your venue for, say, a 2 to 3 hour window where the only items that are available for them to purchase as amenities are items that you control the price of.
Stadiums aren't the only places with a captive audience. You've probably experienced this before, at the airport. But there's one key difference. At most major US airports, there are rules that keep food prices in check. Local airport authorities can cap how much an airport can charge under a policy called Street Pricing Plus. For example, in the New York area, if this chocolate bar costs an average of $8.27 on the outside, airports can only charge that street price plus a 15% upcharge, capping the price at $9.51. You can take a look at our So Expensive episode about airport food to see how difficult it is to enforce Street Pricing Plus. But at least there is a policy in place. And right now, New York lawmakers are trying to implement something similar for stadiums, the Fair Concession Pricing Act. The bill would allow venues to charge a maximum of 20% above street prices for food and non-alcoholic beverages. To really understand how something like this would work, I spoke to New York State Senator April Baskin.
So for people who haven't read the bill, what exactly is the Fair Concessions Pricing Act?
If you're at a stadium or an arena and there is a hot dog for sale, if the 10-mile radius around the arena has establishments that have hot dogs that are priced at $5, that means that in the arena, the hot dog cannot be any more than $6.
One of the main arguments for implementing street price for airport food is that it's sold to a captive audience. Since that's also the case for stadiums, it should be pretty easy to enforce street pricing, right? Not exactly.
The difference between an airport and a stadium is that while airports are well understood to be pieces of public infrastructure, even if the stadium is publicly owned, in full or in part, there is a legal argument that can be made that if the stadium is privately operated, that once one enters into the building, then it becomes a private environment.
Judith is right. LaGuardia Airport, for example, is run by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, while Yankee Stadium is operated by, well, the Yankees. But that's why New York State plans on getting creative. For example, when Yankee Stadium was built in 2009, the total cost was about $2.3 billion. But about $1.2 billion of that came from public subsidies and city tax breaks. The team also doesn't have to pay property taxes because the stadium was built on publicly owned land. The Fair Concession Pricing Act would require stadiums that receive any taxpayer money to adhere to street pricing plus 20%. If a stadium violated the rule, it would risk losing tax exemptions, face fines up to $10,000, and have to repay a portion of the public funds they receive. Historically, public investment in stadiums was based on the premise that stadiums would provide economic benefits to surrounding communities. But experts aren't so sure that's the case. In one survey from 2017, 80% of economists agreed that stadium subsidies cost taxpayers more than the local economic benefits.
When local governments make these types of investments, they have to also think about the cost burden on the people, not just the investment, but even afterwards, after the investment. People are still spending their money.
Another bill, called the Honest Oversight of Ticketed Dining and On-Site Grub Act, or Hot Dog Act, would direct the FTC to study stadium concession prices nationwide and recommend ways to make them more affordable.
You get a price, $16 for a beer, and you have no idea how that money is being chopped up and where it's going. We need to make sure that the corporations in this country are not squeezing every single extra dollar off of the consumers' backs.
Both the Fair Concession Pricing Act and the Hot Dog Act are currently active, but neither has been passed into law yet. These proposals are meant to force the hands of teams and stadium operators. But I was surprised to find at least one stadium making a change on its own. And it says it's working for the stadium and fans. When Mercedes-Benz Stadium opened in Atlanta in 2017, it launched what it called fan-first pricing. It's a model that prices concessions at or near what you'd pay on the street, like $2 hot dogs and $5 beers.
We took those core items and made sure that they were available at what we call street pricing. If you could go outside the venue and get a Coca-Cola, for $3, then we expect it to be $3 inside the stadium.
With cheaper concessions, you would think the stadium would make less money, right? Actually, the opposite happened. The stadium says fans spent 16% more on food and drink, and it saw a 30% increase in total transactions. Overall spending also increased by 20%. Speaking with Tim made me realize just how much concession prices influence the fan experience.
They have the freedom to further invest, if you will, in the experience. So that ultimately results in hats being purchased or a jersey being purchased or other items within the experience now going into the basket, if you will. The model we have in place leaves people feeling more valued and feeling more fulfilled. And then yet when they leave the venue, oftentimes they have taken or purchased more things, but do so in a manner where they're like, wow, I got a lot more for my money.
Tim says the fan-first pricing model has also caught the attention of other stadiums.
It can be done in full scale like us, or it might be as simple as a fan-friendly meal pack.
So with everything I've learned, the only question left is, will anything actually lower the price of a stadium hot dog? The answer depends on who you ask. For State Senator Baskin and Congressman Goldman, these bills are a step in the right direction.
We need to push forward and make sure that the consumers' rights are front and center. And that's why we are pushing forward with this bill. And at a minimum, there's a lot of transparency and there's more data that we can study and learn more about this.
How realistic is it for it to become an actual law?
The success of all of these bills really depends on the people and how much they push people like myself and my colleagues to get it over the finish line. When we agitate the consumers and remind them how much of their hard-earned tax dollars went into creating that arena or that stadium, it will help them connect the dots.